Whoa, just changed the camera there. Hey, everybody, what's going on? Let me change this camera up. Well, this is great. Let me see. There we go. Logitech Brio. Hey, that's better. What's going on, everybody? Dan Tom here, analyst you could find over MMAJunkie.com as well as Action Network. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today, tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight, recording this usual time and place, Thursday night. As unprepared as I looked and as odd as that angle may have been, it's all good. We're going to be getting a new camera, so hopefully that means I no longer need to fry my eggs on this keyboard, which means you don't have to hear a fan struggling. We might actually even get a better camera, the one that I actually bought with the old YouTube Sigma 18 lens and all that. We will see, but that's not what you guys are here for. We're here to talk MMA, particularly UFC Vegas 82, as well as Bellator 301. As you might have saw, snuck up on the thumbnail there. Shoutouts to my guy, by the way, Fanyo from the fight site there. I have been really bad about shouting him out. Great analyst, good friend. Helps this program, whether it's on camera as he's a guest sometimes or behind the scenes. And the fight site, Fanyo, definitely full of people you should support, especially when you have people in need like my guy, Tuman there. Been sharing things on that. Don't want to get too hung up on one thing or the other, but I do need to get these important shout outs out. So if you want to help support good analysts, some good people, make sure you check out the fight site, thefight-site.com, as well as analysts like Fanyo at Fenox Sky. Not sure where Tuman's at because he's been having to escape wars, conflicts, whatever the heck you want to call it, over in certain parts of the world, but there's a bunch of other good podcasts on their feed as well. Shout out to the Forbidden Technique guys; those guys are awesome as well. While we're on it, Grappling Hour. Shout out to my guy Raph Esparza. I got to get some grappling in with him. If you guys, that name sounds familiar. Raph's an OG co-host, however you want to put it, of the Verbal Tap podcast with Kevin Phillips. Miss those guys, but Raph still keeps it going at thegrapplinghour.com if you want to support another OG. Good people, good analysis, but more importantly, he's funny. He's funny. He keeps it entertaining, man. And then, of course, got to shout out my guy, D Loves Turmeric. Of course, that's D_loves_turmeric on Twitter. The Turmeric Tonic. Make sure you add that R. It's TURMERICA. Turmeric. TheTurmericTonic.com. Of course, use code PROTECT15. You get 15% off that. A little bit of lemon, a little bit of ginger, and a nice big little miniature orange container of sorts. You get the turmeric, the anti-inflammatories. Very useful, especially if you get your joints tugged on like I've been. Oh boy, have I been getting my butt kicked. But we are not here to talk about that. I just wanted to get those shouts out of the way. We're going to recap UFC 295. As per usual, we always recap the week before for any new listeners. Welcome to the show. We're all going to do some well overdue Amazon and iTunes shouts that shouldn't take too much longer than the shouts that I just got out of the way. And of course, after that, we're going to be breaking down Bellator 301 and then UFC Vegas 82 from top to bottom. So I'm going to streamline rather quickly. Thank you guys for already popping in the chat. I'll be hitting you guys up in between. And for those of you listening in the future, no worries. You are not stuck with me any longer than you have to be. I go out of my way to make some timestamps that are useful, whether you're in the show notes, on iTunes. By the way, 5-star ratings and reviews. I don't know if I'll get to those today, but I'm overdue to shout those. So if you want to get your name shouted, support the show, do something nice, do something for free, helps everybody. Those are great. You can check the timestamps as per usual. If you listen through that medium, or hello YouTube, if you're listening, watching live, or more importantly, like I'm talking about in the future, after the show here wraps live, I go back even when I'm starving and needing to eat, and sometimes I'll do it at the same time while I'm eating, depending on what I'm eating. Usually some salmon and rice. I can manage it, and I'll kind of watch. I'll get some timestamps along. You'll get some nice, thorough timestamps if you want to jump ahead to fights or individual fights. So now that all the formalities are finally out of the way, let's get to this. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. Oh, what's up, Real Sozen Truesdale in the chat? PAIN is back in full force. You bet it is. I got some. Oh, Jin Karasu over here says, I got some turmeric tonic I got some turmeric, Tom. Does it taste like spicy lemonade juice to you? Yeah, it does. Like you mentioned back then, it makes no sense and doesn't get my fingers orange. Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who actually will chop the turmeric as well to put it in the smoothies, yeah, that orange gets everywhere. The rags, the knives, it's a whole cleanly mess. Let my guy D Love do it for you. It is a lot easier. Good notes there. James Kendrick in the house. Hey Dan, I like the guests, but I think but I like the solo shows better because you are cool dude. Wow, I appreciate that. I don't know about that, but thanks. I guess you speak it into existence, and maybe if I keep no, that's not my intention, but you keep saying like the Asian Bill Burr or something over here, and it's gonna be more of a solo podcast like that, I guess. I don't know. I try to keep it going as best I can for you guys, and I appreciate the guests, even though booking is tough. Props to shows out there who do regular guests like that. That ain't easy. Thankfully, I've got a bunch of really freaking cool people who are just so easy to just chill and come on the show with, so I've been very lucky. Ghost Phantom in the house. Dan, good to see you. Love Fanyo. He's awesome, and so are you. Yes, Fanyo definitely deserves a shout. Speaking of one enforcer to another, my guy Jimmy Kudo. Jimmy Kudo 598. Hey, Dan, Enforcer is here. I'm sure Enforcer 2 will be here soon. Sure enough, he followed right behind you. You know the room too well, Jimmy Kudo. Rain Lamina in the house. Yaroslav Amosov took Oliver Koslov. I don't know what I did. I just do a Mo from The Simpsons. How are you, Dan? If you read the first part, I bispinged you. Oh, no. Oh, Oliver Klozoff. I get it now. I'm so slow to the right. Woo! I appreciate you, Rain Lamina. You're the man. All right, guys. I had to give love to the chat. We're going to kick off here. I'm going to get a little time. 6:55. We'll call that 7. Let's get into the UFC 295 recap. It was a good night. I, of course, got to sport the Poetan shirt here. Fits me really well, man. I mean, I've made this joke before, since I was in my band t-shirt days. I was such a t-shirt snob that, I could tell if the t-shirt was going to fit well, whether it was Fruit of the Loom, okay, it's better quality. I'm talking 2007 here. Whereas, there'd be other, brand t-shirts and stuff where I'd be like, God damn it, why don't you guys go cheap on your merch? Don't go cheap on your merch. My band was crappy. We only toured a few states on the West Coast, and we didn't skip out on our merch. You guys have no excuse, some of you bands. But I used to joke, you could have a shirt that says cum dumpster on it, and I'll wear it if it fits good. Not really literally, but this. I feel like I have such a. I don't know if any of you guys seriously have this trouble. I have such a. No matter what shape I've been in throughout my life, mediums, larges, different shapes through both those sizes. Finding a shirt that fits is really tough. But no, I'm just kidding. It sounds like I was going to roll into an advertisement. You're welcome to throw some money at me, people. But yeah, I was like, man, I just want a shirt that fits at this point. I don't need no fancy things. But Poetan did not skimp out on his merch. I will say that. The man put some quality into his merch there. So yeah, of course, it was a good night capped off by Poetan. We went 9-4 overall in picks, 3-1 in straight plays, 2-2 in props. 1-4 in the round robin, which of course means we didn't get anything from there, which of course means we went 0-1 for the long shot parlay. But officially, we went plus 5.83 units overall. I actually did better than that in the air quote untracked plays. And to be fair, I talked to it like most people don't do with the untracked. They either don't show their slips, which I've done before. I didn't this time because I didn't want to be obnoxious. It was a really nice winning night. I did about 3x that units untracked. But it was also stuff that I did say beforehand because people either they don't post their slips or they don't post the losers along with the winners, right? Beforehand, after. But particularly number 2, beforehand, people, if they do untracked, they usually don't say it beforehand. I actually said some of those things like the alternate round robin I did at one house where I took Rebecca round 1 and I had Diego Lopez round 1 or something, Diego Lopez KO in there. And that paid off. Or stuff that I said on this year's show, which was a parlay that I was thinking about pulling the trigger. And I kind of talked myself out of it, even though my guest, shout out to Luca Fury, by the way, for his time. Even if it's not his style, again, the conversation me and Luca had, just because you don't have the same betting style, doesn't mean it's not bad. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's not profitable, even. And sure enough, that parlay that I gave out, I ended up pulling the trigger on. But I did it at the untracked at the sports book after all my work was turned in. The plays are inputted, tracked, and ready to post and whatnot. But I did play that parlay that I gave out here. That did hit. So again, it was stuff that I did give to you guys in different mediums if you wanted to tail or use that analysis heretofore. But yeah, at the top of the card, and I'll touch on you guys at the end. I just want to get through these sections. We had a lot to cover today. Appreciate you guys always. Hit the like button. Really appreciate that. There's super thanks, which you guys can, I forget the name of it. Super thanks. That's the name of it. Like if I did give you a good tip on this card or the last card for you gamblers out there, and you want to support the free program some way, you can always go back after that. If you're like, hey, listen, I'm not going to wait to see how the service is before I tip. That's how it goes, and you're not wrong. That is logic. Though I will say, living here in Vegas, I will say when you tip before the meal, that's what you do at the nice places in Vegas. You tip before the meal, you'll get a different experience, especially if it's a place with the maitre d' folks. I didn't have anybody to teach me these things. It may sound obvious to you, but yeah, got to do these things, right? So whether it's before or after, whatever your style is, feel free. That being said, the show's going to remain free. I'm still going to love you guys. I'm still going to answer questions no matter what. That being said, those people who do hit the super chat will get the exclusive. I'll make sure to hit you on the way out. I just say that because today I feel bad, even though I shouldn't, but I might not be able to get to everybody today. Alex Pereira defeated Yuri Prochazka. This was definitely a fun one. I was watching this with a company, like this kind of back half of the card, and it was funny. Just from the walkouts and like not knowing anything. Someone that I was watching it with, she was like, I feel like this guy means business. He doesn't mess around. Poatan, but she was like, I really like this Yuri guy. He seems really chill and like at peace and good energy. And it was just funny for someone that didn't even watch the previews or follow the sport. I'm like, yeah, you kind of nailed the vibe there. Both guys are putting out, which is pretty impressive to pick up on when you consider the staleness of the, I almost said Reebok walkout, but you know what I mean, the sponsorship era walkout that we're so numb to, the UFC these days. But yeah, of course, the first round starts. Now, I didn't go back to watch these, and I'm not scoring these live. One company bets, maybe I'm having an adult beverage. I think I actually checked off all three of those boxes, so I try to respect that and don't throw those scores out there. Again, just because I can be an annoying asshole and I took the criteria courses doesn't mean I have to be an annoying asshole rubbing in the fact of criteria courses or whatever. Listen, I did score that first round, not that it matters for Poatan, but maybe it's because I tend to overcorrect the steering wheel, especially when I have bet and bias at play, which I did. But also because we've seen the front half of rounds kind of ignored. We've seen leg kicks, debasing leg kicks, even really bruising and debasing leg kicks, which Poatan checked those boxes. We've seen those not graded properly as well, at least to our opinion, right? So neither was crazy. I don't think it's crazy to get hung up in any arguments on that one. And it was hard to tell how clean Poatan was getting hit, but people that were on the Prochazka side saying the right hand, you weren't crazy. Again, the analysis, for what it's worth, I say it to myself, I'm definitely gonna keep that same energy outward to others, but it's not crazy. I'm a big Poatan fan, obviously. I go crazy. And again, for being an annoying asshole or whatever, and say what you will about bad bets or bad beats, because I've had bad bets too. We all have. You're not being honest with yourself if you haven't. Being said, your boy's analysis hasn't been bad, right? I mean, I've been telling you guys about Poatan round 2 and hitting Poatan round 2 bets since Andreas Michailidis' UFC debut. Did it against Sean Strickland, who's now the UFC middleweight champion. That was my read there. Round 2 here. So it was really, really, really gratifying. That being said, I'm not crazy. It was also a risky fight to bet, which is why I didn't bet crazy as much as I taking a deserved victory lap. I don't want to victory lap too hard or anything on a crazy fight like this. Obviously, Poatan's a guy that can be beat. Again, back to people who had the right hand analysis, which I did as well. Again, they're not crazy, so don't feel too bad as far as that goes. But at the same time, man, and there's nothing against Yuri. I'm a big fan of Yuri. Style, swagger, all that. But yeah, man, I'm a big Poatan fan. And so it feels good when the analysis lines up with the personal biases and bets and all those check boxes. Ends on a winning night. It was a really good pay-per-view objectively, regardless if you bet, right? We've got, which again, it wasn't anything crazy that I predicted. The odds predicted it. I think we all kind of had the gist that this could be an early night across the board on the main card, and it was. And that is the danger. Why I don't like about betting is that you risk putting sour tastes on what is ultimately an awesome, form of art, expression, sport, however you want to define it, whatever you like about it. It's pretty awesome. And it's really awesome when those things line up together because you could risk spoiling it, right? So it was a good night there. Tom Aspinall, of course, defeated Sergey Pavlovich. Another crazy fight to bet. But again, you got to go with your reads, but not go too crazy. And again, we're betting lines that kind of make more sense if we're not betting the plus money. Dan Tom here. I like, Jack. I'm talking like I'm freaking dude from Kurt Russell from Big Trouble in Little China. Me, I like playing, playable chalk is under -150, and I really like just getting close to even money as I can get. That's essentially what Tom Aspinall's money line was at a certain point if he pulled the trigger, but I did not catch that dip, and I just kind of kicked for the coverage of the heavyweight chaos, which is inside the distance, and I said don't be scared off of what happened to probably a lot of us, I imagine, with the Jailton Almeida Derek Lewis from the previous week. This one was going to be crazy. It was. I was hoping we got the submission because if we had that, that was the last leg on the round robin, and we could have hit that. But I'm obviously not complaining. It was a winning night, and Pavlovich will fight again. These two will fight again, and I'm excited to see Tom Aspinall, who is now going to be splitting this heavyweight lineage into two because the UFC, God forbid they give Francis his due daps, and God forbid they don't own the greatest of anything, right? So they're essentially, it's essentially Wesley Snipes and Sly Stallone, and Demolition Man is what Stipe Miocic and John Jones right now. They've got him on ice until the greatest heavyweight or the greatest light heavyweight can duke it out to be was the greatest everything weight, and Dana can jerk off and say, he told you so, right? So I'm rooting for Aspinall to kind of be the disruptor and all that. I see you guys in the chat. I'm going to take a break on the main card after the main card here and get to some of you guys there. Jessica Andrade defeated Mackenzie Dern. Sorry about your ears there. And again, I not to be an annoying asshole on that one, but I did have to do the I told you so and get too excited. I wasn't even drunk or anything like that, folks, when I was tweeting that stuff. It was just sheer excitement. I think a lot of that, too, was kind of built up. Again, bettors in the audience, feel free. Even though, as a good human being or as a effective bettor, either one of those things are two different things, obviously. But both those things common thread is you don't want to take things personally, obviously. It's a bet or whatever, this or that. Obviously, I don't take things personally. Obviously, I'm a fan of Mackenzie Dern. I don't wish her well. Even with my victory lap, I think, as I usually am, one of the few and only, I hope she's all right, because, again, it was a concussive loss, right? So, again, it's nothing personal, but, yeah, it's like when I cash opposite Macy Barber or someone else who kind of got one over when you feel like they shouldn't have, and then on a certain play that cost you, and you almost keep that mental tab, so when you get it back, you're like, oh, fuck, thank you, there was an empty spot in my heart, and now all is right again, someone is who you thought they were in the negative, while the other person you've been defending in the positive is who they thought they were, proves who you thought they were there. You know what I'm saying? It's two of the same things, but two of the different things, and they both happen at the same time. It's very sweet. You guys know I'm a big Jessica Andrade fan as a fighter, as a person. Just seeing and hearing her take all the from the discounting of the matchup to all the OnlyFans stuff, which I'm not policing people's jokes or whatever like that. I was just explaining that as it's public information. Her situation sounded kind of ugly when you ever hear somebody was forced to, being taken advantage of monetarily, forced to do stuff like that. Like that's kind of dark. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. It didn't sound like she was doing it by her own choice, which. In my opinion, I'm all for the jokes, folks, but I just kind of felt weird with that one, right? So watching her just take all this when it sounded like life was already kind of giving her the 1-2 in and out of the cage, even just bets aside, just old Dan Tom loving his underdogs and rooting for people having a hard time in life. Like, I just felt good. Just felt good, right? And Dern had her moment too. She had her divorce during last time. But again, these things are real. And aside from the analysis, even the other like weird stuff like that was analysis, sure, but not maybe non-fight analysis or non-technique analysis, like talking about the corners. You know, I was joking with Luca, like, hey, how many times she's going to have a significant other and a family member and a father in her corner. How many times have family members, fathers, and significant others? I mean, what's their record in corners and turning careers around to the negative, right? And again, you know, as soon as they cut to the corner, like, let's see what Dern's corner's saying. Oh, no Perillo there. What are they saying? Thug life. Thug life. Thug. I was just like, I wanted to just start doing that I told you so's then, but I didn't want to jinx myself. You know what I'm saying? At that point, I was like, this is what I told you guys was going to happen. And we had, you know, and Andrade, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, Dern was doing her typical, and don't get me wrong, it was scaring me too, because Andrade she was cutting it too close, and even though, yeah, boo-hoo on people doubting her. At the same time, like, people were doubting her for a reason. I'm not being totally unfair here, folks, in my victory lap. And, like, you know, it was a very real possibility we could have seen a regression. But as I pointed out, with the age, the time she's been fighting, to the Brazilian warhorse theory, she kind of checked all those boxes. And boy, did she check the boxes emphatically on Saturday. And she thug-lifed it. Of course, I think Brian Miner was the out judge in this one. And we'll talk about why, because, you know, he was the out judge, I believe, in the Lupi Godinez Tabitha-Ricci, where he scored it all for Ricci, and then I guess he scored round 1 for Dern. And it's funny because I think a couple podcasts ago, and by the way, I said something nice about Brian Miner both on this podcast and a recent podcast. So back on the previous conversation on the last podcast I had with Luca, as far as my bad juju, when I compliment these judges, bad things happen. Like, sure enough, Brian Miner, now he is public enemy number 1. Now he is taking his turn on the, boo, throw fruit at you, like it's medieval times, you know, he's strapped up there, right? The judges all take their turn. And what's even funnier, because I saw one of the quote tweets where people were just laying into him, and listen, I try to perpetuate, the low-hanging fruit, just blaming the judge, I try to actually attribute and talk about what actually happened, than just blanket blaming and specifying and pointing at names. I don't like to do that. But I did find it funny when I went through one of the quote tweets of people laying into him. Was like, somebody pointed out, like, tonight Brian Miner has and it was like, scored every fight for Tabitha-Ricci, scored the first round for Dern. And someone did a quote tweet, it was like, motherfucker out here judging the booties. I just died. Because a few podcasts ago, I had a really typical Dan Tom dirty thought that I actually had the discipline to, like, withhold from you guys. But it was essentially going to be just funny. I don't know how I got there. I think it was, like, similar to, like, that hypothetical, you know, with, like, I don't even want to say it. It was a dirty joke, but it kind of fit the butt judging thing. So I just wanted to shout out that quote tweeter, because that was funny. And in Brian Miner's defense, even though I disagree with the scorecard, it was clear at the Ricci fight. Just to jump to that real quick, and I'll skip over it once we get to it, just to blow through this. But he gave her like two of the rounds, and he wasn't the only out judge in that fight. I think there was out judges on each of the rounds, because it's a deceptively close fight in certain ways, right? So it was just one of those weird ones. But Ricci has big moments at the end of round 1 and round 2, and clearly those worked on him. But since he was the out judge, and, you know, for that and something else, by the time that Jessica Andrade and Dern rolls around, it's the same thing. And he's a ref as well, but it's the same thing with a ref. If they stop it early and they get shit, they're probably going to have some late stoppages, either that night or in Keith Peterson's case for the rest of his career. And it's the same thing with judges, right? So it's very easy to deduce just by using some human nature reasoning here, by saying, oh, he was swayed and ended up being way off by the visual, even though he wasn't the only out judge in that fight, right? So naturally, he's like, these judges are human beings, folks. Like, they don't want controversy. Maybe Doug Crosby, but outside of Doug Crosby, like, they don't want controversy. They were very passionate. They're very knowledgeable. They very care much about their job and the sport. So he doesn't want to stick out. So at the end, you got Andrade rightfully, they don't like to use the word stealing the round, but rightfully kind of earning back the round definitively with the rocking of the knockdown of Dern. And you could totally see, like, oh, yeah, he probably was scared because he was like, oh, I was the out judge for getting swayed. I'm not going to get swayed this time, when that was actually much more of a case for the round with a big action at the end than the previous two, if you get what I'm saying. But either way, it didn't matter because Andrade knocked her out, took some Andrade round props, which were really nice as well. As you guys know, I tend to do that, whether they make the official plays or not, like kind of with Jonathan Martinez the other week. If they're gonna put some good numbers on it at my book, I'm gonna fire, and I did that with Andrade. We also had her by KO in the round robin, which didn't produce money, but was still nice. She did her job right. Next we have Benoit Saint-Denis defeat Matt Steamroller Favola. Should have stuck with my initial that it was gonna be Benoit Saint-Denis, which was the obvious pick. Was wrong, but it didn't matter for our grand total. Steamroller also did look, good in the grappling part. Was a bit shaky with the striking. Didn't really have time to settle in. And that was a hell of a shot. That was a hell of a shot off the break. We'll see more Saint Denis. It looked like I don't know if he was trying to do speed changes, but he was throwing his kick much lighter at first, and I thought that there may have been credence to my potential. A lot of it was the timing and why I took Favolo as well, right? There's a lot of recent miles on Saint Denis. He looked like he busted up his toes and feet pretty bad. But hey, that same foot got him the win. So good on Saint Denis. I'm excited to see him in bigger matchups. Diego Lopez comes through round 1 against Pat Sabatini. Again, my initial thought was not just Diego Lopez, but maybe to be cheeky by decision. And the more I looked at the fight, the more I said this is going to be a hard time going to decision. Diego Lopez is going to bring out the best in Sabatini, win or lose. And if we do get that kind of a fight, it's kind of hard to see it go the distance. And if I am picking Lopez and if I am picking him to finish, well, then it's probably most likely going to be in round 1 where we've seen Pat Sabatini, who, a reason why I like Pat Sabatini even more, because he does admit these things, right? He's a human being. They all are, folks. But, he deals with a lot of the anxieties and those things and whatnot. And a lot of those guys kind of can be maybe a slower starter. Or if they are susceptible to be beaten, it's kind of early, as we've seen before. So that was the round 1, and that's why I ended up taking round 1 at the window when they put like plus 450 numbers on it at the house I was playing at. Steve Ursig defeated Alessandro Costa. I didn't watch much of this. I just remember the third round was boring. Mateusz Rebecki defeated Roosevelt Roberts. This is one where I was like, when I was looking for stuff to play for fun at the counter, again, after everything's all in, I'm like, why didn't I know you were kind of priced out, but I'm like, the one thing to play here instead of like choose Parkering, even though I did choose on one of the things, I did take a Rebecki KO, which was fine because I also had him in round 1. It was round 1, it was only plus 200, nothing crazy. But when you're talking about minus 700 favorites, and especially when it's a minus 700 favorite with a legit experienced guy like Rebecki or Rombeski against a short notice dude like Roberts, who was already on the scale admitting like, hey man, like, he's not saying I'm just here for a paycheck or I'm just here, but, when they were booing him for missing weight, he was just like, I just took this on short notice, And that told me, I was like, oh, yeah, he's just showing up. He's just showing up. All right, round 1, Rebecki. Smashed that. Nazim Sidikov, I picked him, and he did win. No, it didn't win. It was a draw. I don't hate the draw. You could have scored it for him, perhaps a couple of different ways, but that was just a great fight. Did it win fight? I think it won fight of the night too. Even though I think that Van and Borjas should have got that. We'll get that in a second. Jared Gordon defeated Mark Madsen. Oh Madsen! Water, please. I would like some water, please. He was calling for the water big by the end of round 1 and setting that pace that he did, which was great. I was rubbing my fingers, but I was like, oh wow. Hopefully he's not gonna gas himself out too much. Where it looks like we're gonna have a round 2 finish, not a round 3. Nope. At the very end of round 1, he crumbled faster than expected, even with the live goggles, right? That being said, good on Jared Gordon. That was the reason why I wanted to put him in a parlay, and ended up doing, but not officially, so I can't victory lap. I didn't take credit, nor will I take credit. Obviously, on the record, it stays off there. But I did call that prior and on this show for what it's worth. And, happy for Gordon. And still can cash there. But I missed the round 3, of course. John Castaneda defeated Kyung-Go Kang. I should have stuck with my pick on Castaneda. And, it was a risky fight either way. So regardless of the pick, I should have stuck with the initial analysis I gave you guys, which at least was the right analysis. Stay away because, again, the price was the same as Diego Lopez. But the reason why I was so confident on Diego Lopez, which we'll get to on some of the dogs that I played here, or at least my justification, win or lose, is that they're going to fight for your money. Whereas Kyung Ho Kang, he's good, he's underrated, deceptive, unheralded. You could lean into those descriptors and be correct. But he's also not the most consistent. And you're not sure what kind of fight you're going to get from him. And that was kind of the case there. And both guys kind of fought weird. Shout out to my guy Fenyo. He kind of pointed out they both kind of fought weird and against their type. So it's kind of a frustrating one. Just for lack of things to take, I think I ended up firing on Kang untracked and missed that. So again, to keep that same energy and not just telling you guys what I want or anything like that. And again, I tweeted that one out as well before the fact. Joshua Van defeated Kevin Borjas, making me look good on the, my MMA Junkie pinned article on my list of the prospects to watch this year in 2023. I'm going to have to get a tally, but everybody's pretty much been kicking ass, hands down. Minus, what was his name? The English guy who lost on Contender Series in that trap fight that he shouldn't have took in the first place. But yeah, outside of that, man, it's been really good. And Joshua Van, I'm really impressed with this one because it's not that he didn't work the body before, but the scouting report on Borjas is he was more the pronounced body puncher. He had more of the narrow kind of offensive purview. So maybe perhaps that was obviously why. Again, Joshua Van, whether it's kicks, spinning kicks, body punches, he's done these things before, but he's such a wild and still growing fighter who's in such high intense action fights that you see him kind of spread the love around as far as his arsenal goes. And this fight kind of forced him to answer and get respect in the spot that, Borjas was dictating in body shots and pressuring boxing. And, well, how do you stop pressure? Well, get some body shots of your own, right? Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje. And he just came to life finding the body work there. Shout out to Ghost Phantom. Excellent. And Ghost Phantom's out there doing kickboxing and Muay Thai threads. Dude's doing everything. And the fact that he comes and hangs out in my chat and is one of my enforcers, very, very grateful for him. And Jamal Emmers defeated Dennis Bazooka. I actually missed this fight. I need to go pay respect to the chat because I forgot to hit you guys on the main card. We got Rios and Truesdale plus 0.53 units. Congrats, Dan. Thank you for that. I think it's 8.53, but yes. James Kendrick. I always love it when Dan gets a winning night, even if I don't agree with your picks. Sometimes it's still cool to watch you win. I really appreciate that. That also means you're not a hater. I really appreciate that. This says a lot about your character, James. It says more about you than me, but I will take it. Jim Carasso, most of the boys here are just fans of MMA. It is okay to bet MMA for fun to add to your point on different MMA styles. Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's the right attitude to have. Hi, Synchro Wing. Hi to you, sir. Jin Karasu, most of the boys here are just... Oh, yeah, there we go. We saw that. Ghost, man, I was wrong about Tom Aspinall. I thought he had to limit the number of exchanges. I don't think he could bang it out the way he did. Congrats to Tom. Yeah, his chin was really good, even though I don't know if I emphasized that enough. But his chin, I know Arlovsky wasn't the best benchmark, like I said, but his chin looked really good. He's eating some hard shots. And one thing I didn't mention in that Arlovsky fight, which I think people overblown with the gas, I think the more thing to that was more of a flag was the amount of shots he was taking from Arlovsky. But I went back to watch that one, and in the post-fight interview, he mentions he got poked or punched or something in the eye, even if it was a legit punch, which I'm sure it was. Not casting shade on Arlovsky, but just saying that actually makes a lot more sense why he kind of had that look like he was frustrated, right? Maybe it wasn't gassing, right? Maybe it wasn't, even though his defense, he does play it a little too fast and loose than I would like. That still remains. Let's not let the result overshadow that. That being said, maybe why he got hit even more in that fight was because of the eye. So that was something that I forgot to mention last podcast. Rios and Truesdale, I've been saying this since 2021, and during your last show, I thought Mackenzie Dern was uncoachable. She trained at Fight Ready for this camp and looked the worst she's ever been. Yeah, I heard someone say she mentioned training back at Fight Ready, which made sense with the Arizona roots, and I did see a couple months back a clip with Cejudo, but I don't know how much of camp committal, and it seems like no one really knows the full story yet, so it's hard to speculate. But that is interesting, and I appreciate your guys' notes. Rio Susan Truesdale follows up and asks, "Do you think she is uncoachable? She trained with Cejudo, bragged about distance control, and fought with her head looking up at the ceiling. Yeah, it was really bad. I didn't see Cejudo in the corner. Not that that necessarily would have made a difference for the striking, especially." Yeah, you would want, not that Fight Ready isn't a great place to go to for those things, but you would want the wrestling more as the focus. That's what everybody, it's the obvious one. We've all been screaming, and she almost just borderline arrogant in the fact of not so much that she's adamant against it, but almost just obliviously arrogant to just, wrestling? Nah, I don't need that. So yeah, I mean, again, give me the better striker and wrestler by a country mile there. Synchro Wing, great call on the Dern fade, Dan. I like Rio, have never been a fan of Dern and her weird media backing that make excuses that will get better when she is not. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And it annoys hardcore fans like you guys, and I will say this to the people who do bet in my audience. This is exactly what you want, those kind of shots. And we'll talk about maybe getting some more of those coming up. But there's a lot of that. Hey, my guy Bill Welker, MMA on the Rocks, another great show, another OG. Great show as always, my man. Bedtime on the East Coast. We'll catch up tomorrow. Cheers. All right, we'll catch up with you, Billy Welks. Ghost Phantom kicking off the clinch break and a very cool unorthodox butterfly sweep. I wanted to do something on X about that fight, but Matt Fravola follows me now. And I didn't want to disrespect him. Yeah, Matt Fravola seems like a nice guy. He reminds me of like a Michael Rappaport character from a movie. James Kendrick, I keep seeing on forums that people think that Loopy is a title contender right now. She didn't look that good against Ricci, who's decent but not great. You think Loopy is just the next Esparza? I think that's an interesting comparison. I definitely am not willing to annoy her, and me, that's not usually my style to really jump too fast. That being said, I have said, and I'm still keeping that same energy where I am high on her for the fact of I compare more to a Diego Sanchez. Even though we'll see, she's maturing and cleaning up her technique, which is for the better. But her durability, pace, strength in the divisions that she competes in, it's enough to take you a long way. And I will defend her, I guess, in the sense of this was not the matchup to make any judgments either way, one way or the other. Because, and which is the reason why I ended up staying away from this fight. Kind of talked about my analysis on the last podcast where this was going to be a weird stylistic fight where neither fighter was going to look good. You know what I'm saying? Or look great. And even if they looked better than you thought, we still essentially got a weird contested striking match, right? So yeah, this was a hard one to judge her too harshly on. Mark Fellows in the house. Oh, I forgot to tune in on time for the Jake Matthews card. Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews. Oh, I heard he's Muslim there now. Muslim Matthews. Nothing to get that. It's funny. I didn't realize that. The Celtic kid, and he was like, we'll get to Jake Matthews. You guys know I got some love for Jake Matthews. With speaking of round two, and I love saying Jake Matthews. James Kendrick shouts to Joshua Van Bodywork and Ghost highlighting it. That was excellent. Yes, on the X app. Follow my man Ghost on there. Matt Polly in the house. Thursday Night Ritual fight breakdowns with Dan Tom. Appreciate you and your sweet Mario Avi, Matt Polly. All right, let's get to it. I want to get to these get to Bellator, and then I'll sneak in Don't worry, folks. I'll sneak in the Amazon iTunes shots that I owe you guys. I just want to get to Bellator 301. All right, 38 Belly. All right, Bellator 301 is headlined by Yaroslav Amosov. Oliver Klotsov. You son of a bitch, Rain Lemon. He's not facing that. He is facing Jason Jackson as I get the odds up. Minus 430 or minus 470 Amosov, plus 360 Jason Jackson, depending where you look. This one I feel fairly priced out of. Even the decision is I think minus 135 or something for Amosov, which would be the only thing I would really bet. I like Jason Jackson, even though people aren't familiar with him. He's quietly become a very well-rounded fighter and one of the better fighters on Bellator's roster that you never heard of with whatever that means, with those caveats attached. Point is, I'm trying to be nice and provide a compliment. He's a very solid fighter. He's been subjected to some really weird things in his fights, like going back to like his fight on the Tough House with like Michael Graves, where like it was just the worst. Like it proves my point. Like whether it's by DQ or just like giving up your back like he did to Michael Graves, like that's the problem with when you let fighters just keep teeing off on people. You saw it with Eric Andrews' first fight with Darren Stewart, right? You saw it all the way back with John Jones and Matt Hamill. Those DQs and what looked like poor fight decisions, which I'm not defending, but you got to understand the context. It's just this weird thing that has been happening since MMA's been around, where when you have these bad non-stoppages, it leads to fighters making the most stupidest, craziest, someone, it looks like the UFC EA glitch montage going on. Like, that's the kind of shit you get with those fights. And, whether it's through the cage, into the cage, around the cage stuff, with the Benson Henderson scraping the face, or was it the Neiman Gracie scraping the face fight? The glitch, and all of a sudden Michael Graves goes from, like, getting 10-7 to where he's on his back to choking him out. Like, there's some weird stuff that can happen in Jason Jackson fights, but ultimately Amosov brings too much of a pace, moves too well, scrambles, fights in too many, competent in too many layers, can extend exchanges in layers and be okay, extend the scrambles and be okay. I think Amosov wins by decision. Again, nothing really to bet on this fight. I'm not looking at parlays. Maybe there's a sweet Bellator parlay out there. I don't know. I'll probably shout out to, again, it's in the spirit of shouting out other shows and other people and other betting styles. Shout out to my guy CJ Saftik from, as well as Paul Shag, good dudes there. Dogger Pass podcast. I know CJ's big on parlays, and I know he always comes strong with Bellator. So I don't have much for you. He's the guy you want to check out for that. But yeah, as far as my analysis goes, I think Amosov's going to win by decision, which is what he's favored to do. Yeah, minus 135, so I'm not telling you anything crazy there. Sergio Pettis, plus 164, depending where you look at, as high as plus 184, depending on where you look at. Schman Schmoll and Schmet Online actually has him at plus 184. And so here's the deal. I just, earlier today, I'm doing a quick picks. I didn't do in-depths for either UFC or Bellator. Between Bellator having a stacked card to UFC having the opposite, we decided with the editors that, just some quick picks for both. Some event day previews are good enough. But before those drop, of course, you guys get you get an inkling from what I have. Now, even though I may not be finalized for the UFC, which I tend not to be sometimes for these shows, more often than not, there's like one or two maybe out, or I've got a lean and it's unbettable anyways, or whatever. I try to get you guys the good stuff, right, on the main cards or undercards. But yeah, I did complete the full main card, so I'll give you guys that here and whatnot. But yeah, basically I picked Patchy Mix. It is not because of any Extreme Couture thing. And lest we not forget, if any of my Extreme Couture bias is more stronger with Eric Nixick. And Eric Nixick was actually in the opposite corner of the last time, And obviously you had, unheralded guys like Nate Pettit, who is, you can credit a lot of both Patchy Mix's and Tatiana Suarez's striking, those improvements, both from the southpaw stance too. Of course, he was in Patchy Mix's corner. Nixick was in Stotts. That was a tough one, man. So Stotts comes out publicly sometime after, and not to make excuses or whatever, because he definitely credited and said this isn't why Patchy won. But if he was being honest, he had a rough weight cut. He passed out. Stotts did. Which again, not saying Patchy Mix wouldn't have won anyways, but it was a good knee. Southpaw versus southpaw matchup. You get weird angles you're not used to, which even make the strikes even more impactful. So I agree. Definitely, obviously, Patchy Mix could have easily won that fight, anyways, right? Multiple different ways. So definitely not taken away from him. But that is something to account for, right? And I only bring that up because I'm also going to present something on the other side that, is interesting, especially with Patchy Mix's, the weigh-in, Bellator weigh-in, 301's weigh-ins happen the morning of this recording of this show, folks. If you're listening in the future, Thursday evening, West Coast Pacific time here. Something that was not known that I was privy to on the ground, and not too secretive. shouldn't surprise you at least if multiple birdies told me that it was a horrendous, as bad as Stotts is claiming his weight cut was. I didn't see much Apache mix around on Hawaii. I was on the ground covering that one, as I tend to do for all but I think one of the Bellator Hawaii shows. Which just sucks about Bellator if this is their last stuff, man. I'm very biased, obviously. Love going to Hawaii. Love that Scott Coker brought Bellator, big MMA, back to Hawaii. Before the UFC did, at least. Right, folks? Yeah. Apache Mix was held up at, apparently at a tough weight cut. I mean, they're all multiple day, fight week, multiple month affairs, how you want to grade it, right? Phrase it. Yeah, but it was from what I heard, it was a bad one. And I look at his age, 30, and I would be saying this even if he made weight on the first attempt this morning, which is why I brought up the timestamp of the show, because he had to take 2 attempts, right? Yeah, this guy's not long for bantamweight. I even wrote that he's due for featherweight to finish his career. I'm making that assumption. I don't tend to do that or speak for the fighters. I think it's pretty ignorant. I think it's really easy for us media members to overstep our conjecture, even our analysis, right? Being fair, keeping the same energy toward myself. That being said, if I feel it, man, I can't help but say it, right? You know what I'm saying? It's nothing personal. Doesn't mean I'm not picking him or this or that. I did pick Apache Mix here, officially, but I did say it's a dog or pass perspective. Part of it because Pettis, especially in his Bellator career, has made his Bellator career of just proving the odds makers wrong, coming through an underdog, proving people like me wrong, proving pundits, pretty much proving everybody wrong. So for that reason alone, I don't know how much you can blame me, and I certainly wouldn't blame anybody for just taking Pettis out of respect, deserved respect, right? Been around longer, fighting longer, had the belt longer, more defenses, more impressive resume, more deep sample sizes, right? Some of the best current or former champions at 125, 135. Pettis is 3-1 against UFC level southpaws. He doesn't have to fight a southpaw in Bellator. If you're wondering who those southpaws were, you're gonna have to go way back, like I did. Matt Hobar, who rocked him in the first round, by the way, with a left. Chris Carriasso, who he beat. Split decision against Joseph Benavidez. I do think he won that, if memory serves. And then, of course, he lost to Alex Caceres, who I don't know if it was a club and sub or just a slub where Pettis, was quietly kind of slowly falling apart, falling right into a prospect loss trap, right? But that's where his 3-1 goes. We haven't seen him against southpaws in quite some time, though. Again, I like the River Sport Camp. I got to imagine one of their biggest strengths is preparing for a southpaw. For what that's worth, right? But ultimately, the reason why I couldn't pick him, but I still ended up, spoiler alert, playing him because I said I have to see a certain number, and I did. And I was going to say that to you guys, and then, because he opens at plus 150, and you can make an argument that that's a bit too wide. Like, this fight and another fight that I bet, perhaps multiple other fights I bet, it's not that the wrong guy's favored. I'm not going to be that bold and say that. I don't have a problem with the guy that I'm not playing or picking, or one or both, being favored. What it is not so much that the wrong guy's favored. It's that regardless of who you favor, this fight shouldn't be that wide. Not that plus 150 is wide, but I don't even think it should be that wide, much less tack on another 35 cents, which I said I wanted to see plus 185. And I don't care that I picked Apache Mix. This is dog or pass. Again, we don't make me re-break down betting for you guys. It's not picks, analysis, and bets are all different things, much less picks and bets. Picks, bets, and analysis are all different things, folks. And I'm stating it as per usual, showing my work, stating it before the fact, putting the money where my mouth is. So when I saw plus 184, I had to play it. But again, back to why I said why I ultimately had to pick Mix and why I'm not crazy about it. I'm not telling you to jump off the cliff, even though I am confident enough to say it's where the value is, right? Even if I didn't get that number, like I wasn't thinking I was going to, I would be saying the exact same thing. That's where the value is. I don't know if I'm going to play it. I'm not telling you to run out and play it. But you can make an argument for Pettis at plus 150, much less plus 185. So at plus 185, I kind of have to play him. I didn't get plus 185, but I saw plus 184. I don't even know if we'll even get that. That was only at one house, Schmet Online. If you have Schman Schmoll, you might be able to find those are the only two places that I see right now with those numbers. If you do, I'm not saying you need to or should. You shouldn't be betting at all, folks, to be honest. It's crazy, much less betting Bellator. But this is, Bellator at its peak, Bellator at its most sample size fighters we're going to get. I'm betting, obviously, higher caliber, higher sample size fighters. And even though Bellator has a bunch of weirdness, it's usually the weirdness that happens with, again, more of the Bellator level that isn't the topper tier fighters, and you still have those really wide odds, right? This Bellator, you've got not as wide odds at a lot of spots because there's actually a lot of competitive matchups, a lot of really good fighters with really good sample sizes in and out of the UFC, in and out of the North American scene are fighting. I ended up taking just a couple of dog shots, and one of those ended up being Pettis, but I keep cutting my own thing off. Back exposure. Pettis gives too much back exposure in scrambles and in his defense. And even though he is like Anthony Pettis, where he can hit reversals, he's not as, even though he's arguably more proven than Mix, he's not as proven as Pettis as far as, against good back takers. I mean, Pettis was giving his back to guys like Charles Oliveira and still turning back into him, to eventually submit Charles Oliveira, by the way, right? And it's like, yeah, Charles Oliveira's down at 145, but it's like, yeah, well, so was Pettis for that fight, right? I believe, or was it a 55 fight? I'm not sure. Either way, that's impressive, right? And so I imagine he comes from that school, so he's very confident in it. He's a black belt. He hasn't been submitted again only once in his pro career, and that was against Alex Caceres, who is like kind of that guy, and still proves to be that guy, that upset prospect loss guy, right? So yeah, betting values on Pettis, man. What if it's a bad knockout? He gets some body work, or he gets a knockout shot, right? Decision. He's defending knockouts or defending takedowns, or if he's good enough to at least not get submitted, maybe he only gives 2 rounds. And if you give 2 rounds and you risk one of those being a 10-8, well, you put yourself in a position to possibly need a finish, right? If you go down 2 rounds by backpacking, because chances are one of those, they probably did enough damage to convince at least 2 of the 3 judges to give you a 10-8. That being said, that also means output. That also means a lot of work from Mix. And if he's having a bad weight cut, having to do backpacks and this and that, does he start to gas out, right? Because Mix is 30, and he's not 31, but 31 and up is when I really start, hardcore fading guys who are cutting big to bantamweight, or flyweight or something around that area, right? So the official picks is actually Mix. I think I actually picked him by decision, so he can get the decision, right, from backpacking and this and that. But again, he ended up having a rough weight cut. It looks like that's kind of the intel from before. Whereas Pettis makes this weight very easily. Pettis is very experienced. Pettis fought better competition. Pettis the more well-rounded fighter. I mean, see him near 2-1. I don't know why I keep talking about it. I think I made the point. Next fight. It's not listed next, but I'll say it next. I think it's what's next. Best fight odds is all fucked up. We got Danny Sabatello minus 135. Rafion Stotts plus 114. Now, Sabatello opened plus 140 and Stotts opened at minus 188. So again, you don't need another long explanation from me. The value is clearly, even Joey Odessa, shouts to Joey O, who hates the value word. Even he'll tell you the value is on Stotts. You have the classic, the favorite flipped. You did a complete line flip. So you don't have to justify anything to anybody. Oh, but what about the betting public? Like, what about it? Like, I posted like an interesting line flip, and I usually don't do cheeky posts like that, but I want to see what people were saying. And, and not that I tipped a hand a particular way, and neither did this person, so I'm not doubting on this person or whatever, or attacking them. But what they said, the one of the few replies I got was very representative of the MMA gambling community. Is something along the lines of, not too surprised considering Stotts is 35, coming off a vicious KO or whatever. It's just like, well, that depends. I mean, you like to see guys take 6 months, and he roughly is at that 6 month mark, right? Just over that, right? I'm not sure, right? It was April, and now we're in November, so he passed that mark. 35. It's like, yeah, but you know, we've seen 30, you know, from Frankie Saenz to Frankie Edgar, right? Top bantamweights, former champions to, you know, and I mean this respectfully, but journeyman guys at best, right? And Frankie Saenz, like, we've seen them still do it. Jose Aldo goes in resurgences as a career after all the miles he had, right? And that's Jose Aldo, granted. But Javier Stotts is an excellent athlete. He is a Division II national champion, kind of like Kamaru Usman, right? He does not have the miles, the MMA miles at least, are the same. You know, the wrestling miles are there, I'm sure, obviously. But as far as the MMA and fight miles, he doesn't have a lot of those. And he doesn't typically take a ton of damage in his fights. You know, even in the fight where he got knocked out, it was just a one and done clean, you know. Those are actually better for you than being the BJ Penn and having the chin and taking, you know, mounts of damage, you know. And even with the 6 month rule, that's not a hard and fast one. You've seen me pick guys like back to Poatan Pereira when he fought Jan Blachowicz, right? Like that was a red flag. That was within 4 months or so of, you know, being put out by Israel Adesanya, right? And getting the arrow stuck in him and everything, right? You get what I'm saying. But yeah, like, so you got to be careful about that. And don't even get me started about being too afraid to fade the betting public. I love fading the betting public. What did we just talk about with Andrade and Dern, right? And again, that is the justification. Oh, age and miles. It's like, man, how many times have we, as bad as this year has been for betting, for myself and others who are OGs and tend to like the OGs, at the same time, in our defense, and probably where we've had some of our biggest cashes, even when we haven't, like the one I'm about to cite, how many times have we seen the Bobby Green and what's his name, bad guy from every Disney movie, Grant Dawson, you know, story, the Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade, we're still, despite us OG style bettors eating a lot of bad beats, bad bets to everything in between this year, there has been a ton of those marquee reminders, folks, that I love to see. And Danny Sabatello, you know, is it the fact, you know, somebody mentioned in the chat, like, oh, people, like, you know, and again, us media are bad at it. Like someone mentioned Dern, right? And like, oh yeah, we give these people way too much credit, and we do. Whether it's, you know, the babyface thing, you know, like the, you know, the babyface girl kind of a deal, or whether it's the squeaky wheel type of deal, right? Where it's, you know, Danny Sabatello or whatever. And I've been victim of this too, folks. Like, again, I think one of my most embarrassing picks, and it was a flyer pick, admittedly. It was a heavyweight dog. And I'm a big fan of Curtis Blades, but I actually picked Justin Willis to beat Curtis Blades. Can you believe that? I'm going to pause so you guys can laugh at me. I deserve it. Okay, done? Okay, good. I deserve that. But the point was, I remember, you know, I looked in hindsight, and even though I still could, you know, be like, oh, that was a stupid pick, and just take it on the chin and just chalk it up to, like I said, heavyweight intangibles. And, you know, in my defense of that pick since, we've seen Curtis Blades, you know, make some real questionable decisions and not wrestle guys where it was completely obvious, right? That one, he did the obvious thing he should have done that you wished he did in his last 3 matchups now or so, right? And he took Justin Willis to task. But I remember Justin Willis coming into MMA Junkie Radio and, like, I don't know what it was, but I think we picked against him on a fight, and I don't even know if it was me, but, you know, they see the staff picks, and he, like a lot of fighters, they get pissed off at the Junkie people because of that. So, and because Georgian Goes and me, who was lucky enough to be with them at the time on the radio show, have to interview these fighters or see them face to face in the studio, we often get shit from them, right? Like Bobby Green came at us hard, and again, I stay professional. Who's a big Bobby Green fan still to this day? I am, right? But Justin Willis did a similar thing. And surprise, surprise, what was his next fight against Curtis Blades, folks? And surprise, surprise, I wasn't the only one who picked the big plus 310 underdog in Justin Willis, right? It was also Goes and Gorgeous George, my colleagues. And us media people, we can, especially when you have these big talkers, you interview a guy like Sabatello, you got to be careful because you don't want to nod along too long because you want to be objective. You want to kind of, be real clean. You don't want to, oh yeah, I think so too. Great answer. Like if you notice the real pros, even when they get a good answer and they have a good rapport and a good flow and a good chemistry to the interview, they will often almost coldly sometimes jump to the next question and move it on. You know what I'm saying? But when you get guys like the Sabatellos or whatever, like it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, no, you're great, Danny, And he's intense, man. Like when I've interviewed Danny in person and covered him on the ground at the scrums, like you definitely gotta lead him a bit to get a good answer and maybe make sure he's not distracted and coming at you for the vitriol, not just because you don't want to get any vitriol, but because you don't want to make it about you as a media person. You want to get the interview topic to actually answer a question of interest, right, for the people. Maybe, yes, for your website too, sure, because you're covering it, right, all that stuff. But yeah, like I don't know if it's because of that, and because he's all in these interviews. Danny's like, no, I lost that fight. See, only one judge got it right, and he fails to mention that judge was Doug Crosby, who is one of the worst judges, right, and has not judged high-level MMA since that weekend. Of course, that was a notable weekend. Was it 272 Bellator? Either way, he flew the next night to judge a UFC and delivered a very questionable scorecard there, right, and has not been seen since. And the reason why the other judges did not score it for him is because Danny Sabatello does not have a criteria-friendly style. His submissions seem to be getting better, but if he can't submit you or dominate you enough to the point of submission, then he's really going to have to make hay with his position, strike in the transitions, and really sell the refs that way. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Both change his style that drastically. If he has the physical capabilities as well as the mental capabilities, because he seems like a pretty stubborn dude, right? And then Stotts' athleticism, his ability to grapple, float. He trains with really, and Sabatello trains American Top Team, even though I haven't seen that much training footage of him this time around. Stotts obviously training with guys like Adrian Yanez and Matt Schnell. He's got a solid Texas crew down there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Stotts. I originally picked him for the classic wrestler trope to land a head kick KO, kind of break him down by round 2 or 3. I picked the same here because that's another thing too. It was like and I went back to read my breakdown for that fight, and it was like I was trying to make a case for the other person, and for Sabatello, it was again he was gonna have to fight against his style to be more criteria friendly. But not just that, I still didn't even think that was enough, that he was going to have to do that to the point to where, and hope, Stotts starts to wear down in the latter rounds, and Sabatello can start to earn some of those rounds. And he had those rounds to work the last time, but this time it's only a 3-round fight. So it's like 3 rounds favors one guy more. On paper, stylistically, by my analysis, one guy's favored more. And how about the fact of not just another one of my favorite tropes, or speaking of value, when the line flips, there's value. Another time where there's value, you don't have to explain to anybody. When you get the Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonalds of the world, where you're going to give me underdog odds for guys that didn't fight that long ago. It's not like Liddell Ortiz are running it back, 10 years later. They're old men. Like, no, these guys are still in their capable primes. It wasn't that long ago. What are we doing? And you're going to give me plus money? For a guy who's already proven he can win, a guy already theorized to win, a guy anybody could theorize enough to justify him as a favorite to win, you're going to give me plus money after we've seen it. Okay. I will tell you, forced my hand. I actually found it at plus 122, so I threw a unit on that. Rafian Superstats, baby. Let's go. AJ McKee minus 278, Sydney Outlaw plus 225. I took AJ McKee here. Part of me was surprised to see it not wider, but then again, Sydney Outlaw has had a if he's not getting iced by super athlete wrestlers who can punch like Mike Chandler or whatnot, like in the first round, his wrestling and submission grappling ability allows him to compete with those guys and give them deceptively hard fights. So I'm guessing that's why, because I'm picking AJ McKee to win, and similar to the Stotts Sabatello, I'm going to go with the classic southpaw trope. I don't know if it's going to be a knockout. It might be a club and sub, but it's going to be sparked off of a head kick, kind of like, his first fight with Patricio Pitbull Fieri, McKees. Classic southpaw, and then kicking the dipping wrestle boxer, Sydney Outlaw. I believe I picked it round 2. But regardless of what round it happens, like, I wouldn't be surprised actually, like, for Sydney Outlaw, like, to, like, maybe be, like, surprisingly either winning or being competitive in the round and surprising people with that expectancy bias. You know what I'm saying? And then until AJ McKee pulls out something opportunistic, as he's had to do in some of his fights before. We'll see. Alexander-Saragih, baby, minus 700 against Patricky Fieri, plus 500. More Bellator odds, more Bellator-style fighter here with the classic Pitbull brother. Of course, Saragih still needs to popularize himself to North American audiences. I did call it down to the round, I believe. What was it, round 2 or round 3? I forget which one it was, but I called the exact round. Although maybe I didn't see it playing out the way it did up until that point. But I do think Saragih's pinpoint counters, his knees, just his savvy in and out of exchanges and clinches. Not that it'll be a lot of clinching. I feel like Fieri's going to be more conservative. We've seen that, right? But I think Saragih can find him by round 2. So that's what I picked. Even though Patricky, it's usually round 1, get him out of there, or he makes it to a decision. I think Saragih's going to be able to get him out of there by round 2. I didn't play anything on it. Again, these are wide lines, not widely available lines. And then you've got like Golem versus Fortune, Kielholtz, Sumiko Inaba. I like Inaba, but that could be a classic. They're favoring the hype over the more known quantity. Say what you will about Denise Kielholtz there. But again, not juicy of a number for me to want to stab. And you've got a bunch of other fighters. I apologize if I did not mention them. All right, that concludes up Bellator 106. I'm going to clean up the chat and then do the iTunes, Amazon shouts real quick, and we will finish up with what you guys came here for, UFC, even though Bellator is a better card. So, right, so there we go. All right, Rain Lamina. I Bisping Dan. Yep, you got me. You got me. Rios in Truesdale. Speaking of Bellator, Liam Picks Fights said that Bellator is the most volatile promotion for betting. I don't know about most, but yeah, it's right up there. It's super volatile. I agree with Liam there. He goes, is that something you would agree with? Yeah, I agree. I like Liam and seems like a cool dude from your collab. Liam is a cool dude, man. I really like Liam a lot. That's why I got him on the show. Shouts to Liam. It's incredibly volatile. I can't disagree there. They're all volatile, honestly, in MMA. So it's hard to split hairs. But yeah, Bellator more volatile than UFC, which says something. Synchro Wing is Extreme Couture, a large gym that allows other fighters' teams to train there. I bought Nick 6 Cage Control with Dan Ige, and it's really good. Nice. Yeah. I mean, you can't be a jerk, and there are certain exceptions that go both ways. But it's one of the more open gyms. Not that it's wide open, but you know what I mean. Kind of just by nature being where it's at. You get a lot of passer-throughs. Jimmy Kudo, Mix is massive for 135. I agree with you that he might have to go to 145, maybe 155 just because of his height. Yep. Hey, Chronic Combat Conversations, the boys in the house. Paul Craig. Nothing can outrun a great Scotsman. Oh, we're going to talk some Paul Craig soon here. Hi, TB and Guru. TB and Guru are the mans. Conversations crew in the house. That's right. Chronic Combat Conversations. Rain Lamina, congrats on 500 subs to TB and Guru. Oh, they got 500. That's right. Go sub to those guys if you haven't already. Makato Kayagoku. Hey, it's been a while since I've been on. It has been. Nice to see you, Makoto. It's been good to see the boys and this great podcast. Well, it's great to see you dropping by. Appreciate you. All right. I already have the Amazon links pulled up. If you want to support this free show here, go to mixedmartialanalyst.com. And you can scroll down, perhaps toggle to the right if you're on the mobile, and you will see click-throughs for Amazon. And on it, if you shop there, you just click through the link, you are at the site, and you just go about your normal shopping, and through no extra clicks or cost to your purchase, small percentage of said purchase will get kicked back to this here program, which helps a lot. On it won't tell me anything about your purchases. None of them give me any of your personal information or your general information, so I don't know who you are, but Amazon will give me a nice little list here of what was bought, and I can pontificate, hopefully comedic-like, as I give you guys shouts for whatever you bought. I don't know who bought what, so don't worry if you want to, have a nice David Carradine one night in Bangkok and, buy the silk kimono with the vibrating nunchucks. However you get your rocks off, you go to the mixedmartialanalyst.com, my website that supports this here program, my podcast. And again, scroll down to the right, click on the Amazon link. You can buy whatever the heck your little heart desires, and it'll end up on this here list. Somebody bought a tall nightstand with LED lights and charging station. Ooh, that's a pricey one. Thank you for buying that. Tell me how you like that, by the way. I have one of those weird I have a cheap nightstand, and then I bought one of these I guess they call it nightstand. It's NYSTND. I shouldn't give them a plug because it's not the greatest thing, especially with the case that I have. It doesn't really charge it, but you can charge your watch, your AirPods, all your stuff there. It gives you a spot to put your glasses. It's one of those dealies. So hopefully yours came with something comparable, considering looks like it costed more money than I spent on mine. Thank you for that. Best Pet 3 Wheels Pet Stroller. Dog, cat, cage, dogger, and stroller. A pet stroller. Oh, wow. Is it puppies? Is it older dogs? Is it just small dogs? Either way, I appreciate that. I appreciate you being active and finding a way to take the little ones with you. They appreciate that. PreSonus Studio 24cc 2x2 audio interface. That sounds really expensive, whatever the hell that is. Good luck to you on whatever audio project you have going, whether it's a podcast, some recording stuff. Someone got Keurig Brewer Cleanse Kit for maintenance. Includes descaling solution. Brewer, that's those Keurig machines, those little drinking things. Cool, thank you for that. Somebody got some One Audio wired headphones over the ear for noise isolation. I'm guessing that's the person that bought the audio interface. So again, good luck on whatever you're putting together. Because you also, looks like you bought a Flamma FV01 vocal effects processor pitch correction voice pedal. Intense. Somebody got PlayStation DualSense wireless controller Midnight Black. That sounds like a sweet color. I bet you that looks really cool. Hopefully you enjoyed it, regardless if you did or not. Thank you for thinking of me and clicking through the link on that one. Somebody bought an Blazon Aries case for. I'm afraid to get Rain Laminate everything I read right now. Dan, Rain Laminate did not put together this list. Aries case for iPhone 13 Pro Max. That's what I have. 6.7 inches. I think that's what I have. But us guys, we're not really accurate in measuring in that neighborhood. Geeka Mini PC. Mini IT8 Intel. I don't know what the hell that is, but that was pricey. So thank you for clicking through. Whoever bought that. Also very pricey. Whoever bought the PS5 console. Thank you very much. Some of these winnings I've been doing untracked. I'm like, man, I can buy myself a PS5 console, but I was tempted to, but I actually reinvested into work in this podcast, and old Dan Tom may or may not be getting a new computer. So. We'll see. We'll see if we get to the PlayStation 5. Hopefully you enjoy it, though. Let me know what games you're getting. Well, maybe one of the games is right here, Dan. Mortal Kombat Premium Edition PlayStation 5. That wasn't cheap. Thank you for buying that. Hopefully the fatalities are cool. KEWL. Wireless keyboard and mouse. 15 backlit effects. Rechargeable. Thank you for buying that. The Dark Side of the Moon 50th Anniversary Remaster. Alrighty. Hopefully you got some, adult ingestibles to maybe make the enhance your experience there. Sounds like someone else who rocks up my alley. Thank you for thinking of me there. Again, mixedmartialanalyst.com, my website. If you want to support this here program, just go to mixedmartialanalyst.com, click on the On It or Amazon banner, more particularly if you want your products read off, and if you just want to support the show straight up and send me a nice message, there is a secure PayPal link as well for this free program that will remain a free program. Of course, at Dan Tom MMA, as you see in the little name tag here, where you can find me on all social platforms in my link tree, also a secure PayPal link. All right, let's get to the breakdowns, folks. Chronic Combat Conversations. Appreciate the PYN crew. I love it, man. I went and watched your guys' show, as I try to do for my desserts, and seeing all you guys populate the chats of my friends' shows makes me so happy. They're good people. They deserve it. And I just love seeing good people interact with good people because we need more of that. I don't know about you guys. I forget that there's like actually good people in the space. You tend to forget that in MMA after too much time here. I got most of my friends to use your click-through link as well, Ghost Phantom says. So I hope they bought cool and funny stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Rios in Truesdale. Hey, that iPhone iBlasian case was me. Thank you, Rios in Truesdale. I appreciate that. Hopefully you dig it and it is serving you well. All right, 115 UFC Vegas 82 UFC Fight Night. Alan vs. Craig UFC Fight Night 232. Of course, all the names. It is at the Apex. Headlined, yes, of course, by Brendan Allen, minus 425. Paul Craig, the comeback, plus 330. Brendan Allen almost doubling in price here. Especially if he gets to 5-1, which I don't think he should or would. Surprised he's gotten this high, to be honest. But yeah, he opened at minus 275. So now going off at minus 475, all the way up to minus 450, depending on where you look. Again, that's crazy. Reductive analysis should tell you that it's dog or pass territory. My halfway through the fight tape analysis was like, I'm going to go not just overs, but I think I might even bet decisions. Goes to decision and then Allen by decision. Like, I feel like Paul Craig is going to be like Jack Hermanson in either Marvin Vettori or the Sean Strickland fights. Like, I think we're getting one of those two fights. Those just, again, we're getting middleweights who come from a grappling base. They come from grappling bases. Strickland was a jiu-jitsu guy, more of a grappler. Vettori, brown belt, Cobrinha, underrated wrestling, but loves to strike. Hermanson, right, grappler, then kind of just fell in love with his jab, and in those fights, that weird love triangle of sorts, right? You just had like long decisions, like unless it's like Derek Brunson or Derek Brunson against a guy who falls apart or prone to fall apart faster than him, and like Edmund Shabazian, right? Like those. We've seen a bunch of we've gotten a big sample size of middleweight 5-rounders in the Apex, and again, not to be too reductive because it's like, oh well, of course all fights can go one of two ways. They either go finish, they go the distance. Dan, it's like, well, what I'm saying is a lot of these ones with the grappling based guys, where it's like, what are we doing here? What do these guys look like in 5 rounds? Why do I even care? I don't know. I get those vibes that like we could just get a really weird fight. Now, I still think we're going to get a really weird fight actually after fully running the comb. However, I took the gas off of my thoughts about going to the decision, but I still feel good about the over, which is weird, man. I've got my dog shots in Bellator. I've got some more dog shots coming your way, guys. Don't worry. Old classic Dan Tom's not going to let you down, but I am tempting fate with the totals again. I've never liked totals ever. There was a point where they were being kind to me this year, and I let my guard down, and then I just been getting analystly R-worded, the Jailman Special, the American History X Shower. We get it, man. Sorry, again, I could have not have told you guys about my week off from some of these untracked, but you guys know me, even when it's painful. Whether it's the amount, like laying a hammer for the jailman Lewis under, or just the stupidity. It wasn't even a big amount. I don't even know if I even really played it. It was more of a pick. Just the stupidity of the picking the Justin Willis over Curtis Blades. I will come clean with you guys. That's one thing you know. All right. For any victory lapping you could accuse me of, which is very little, I definitely come tenfold the other way. I keep that same energy on myself. But yeah, I'm going total here. I feel like, especially over, they're going to give you such playable chalk. Open minus 105. The highest I'm seeing is minus 125. I got it for minus 120. I went 2 units on that because they only have to survive for 1.5 rounds. And I know round 2 is the hot round for both of them. Primarily Allen. Allen gets finished or finishes a lot in round 2. That is traditionally the hot round for Brendan Allen. That being said, Brandon, as well as round 1, right? That being said, Brendan Allen has not really been fighting 5-round or scheduled for 5-round fights, right? And Paul Craig is deceptively durable, despite, we see him fall apart early. It's usually taking like crazy athletes like the Khalil Roundtrees of the world, Johnny Walkers, right? Like, if it's not those guys, he's either making it the distance or making it to the end with Jimmy Crute, another good submission grappler, right? And gets him out of there in round 3. Note that, right? And conversely, with Allen, even though they're much different style of fighters, you can give, maybe Paul Craig a couple small points ahead in the column for submission grappling where, when you want to talk about sweeps or wrestling, and those kind of scrambles that involve wrestling scrambles or reversals, you're going to give, or you should be giving Brendan Allen a couple more points in that direction, right? They both have had some of their toughest fights against either athletes or guys who can grapple and or wrestle, right? And you look at that with Brendan Allen, that deceptively tough fight with Jacob Malkoun. It's competitive for a round with Kyle Dukakis, but obviously he pulls away from Kyle. And as much as I like, Kyle Dukakis, we saw, that didn't age as nicely, right? He maybe wasn't, I don't want to, he can come back and have another second resurgence. I don't want to be disrespectful, but, definitely underachieved from what we thought, even if he didn't think that high, right, with that first UFC run. So I don't know how much we put into that. Let me see. I got Brendan Allen's record right here, so I'm not just pulling it out my ass. Chris Curtis, right, not a submission grappler, but as we've seen with against other good submission grapplers, he can shut guys out because he's got good wrestling, right? Sean Strickland, good wrestling. I think one of Sean Strickland's few takedowns, I think, even before the stoppage he gets in that fight, right? He shows that he's the better wrestler, even though he ends up getting a striking stoppage and kind of fights on short notice. Tom Breeze, good grappler, but kind of, as we say, not to be rude, I love Tom Breeze. I'm very sympathetic to people with the mental struggles, but, he dealt with that. Even though he had some UK wrestling grappling credentials, I don't know how strong those were, right? As far as the wrestling goes. Anthony Hernandez, even though Eric Anders, they're not D1 wrestlers or anything, but both of their styles are very grindy, obviously, right? Early loss to Trevin Giles, and that was him going for submissions and making really... It was actually very Paul Craig loss that he has to Trevin Giles if you go back to watch that one. Jay Giles, It's a submission loss, so it looks bad, but I wouldn't, hang your hat on that as to why Paul Craig's going to win. Not saying he's going to win, not saying I'm picking him, not saying he can't win. I'm just saying you can't hang in, he got submitted by Giles. Well, you can get submitted by Craig. It's not that easy. He was kind of knocked out and just took a beating, until that submission finally got him out of there, kind of a deal with that fight. And then even in his wins, again, Jacob Malkoun, tougher than it needed to be. And then it's weird, Allen striking, it looks like it's really improving, right? Or he'll do these things where it's like he's not really wasting time. He's getting right to business with Christoph Yoko on the ground. Or, with Bruno Silva, he's rocking a guy like Bruno Silva, which I still think means something. I know people have been down on Bruno Silva, so I'll be curious to see if they keep the same energy when it comes to capping this fight, right? As far as, people being down on Bruno Silva versus... what is it? Shout out to my guy Brad, called him Shitmadov, the guy, whatever he called him, the one-eyed guy. That still means something. But it's interesting because when you go back to watch the Andre Muniz fight, that was impressive at the time. But it's that one doesn't age as well too, because Muniz, even though I was high on him, he's kind of showing that, oh wow, once he gets to a certain level, he can just fall apart, right? So there's that, right? But even when you go back to watch that fight, Muniz actually did better than what I remembered in that fight. Maybe because I bet him and I was just, worried the whole way, and I knew he was going to lose because you get the broadcast bet, you get the Eminem walkout, you get the buffer fist bump. I remember I tweeted him oh shit, this bet's dead in the water. I was 3 in a row. It was an all submission round. It was an all submission round robin, and all 3 fighters hit their submissions. And Andre Muniz, who was the best on paper submission fighter on the entire card, was the last leg, which would have been a huge, crazy night. And so, of course, I'm watching through a bit of a different lens. But once that's out of the way and you go back and watch, Muniz actually does better than you expect, especially when you incorporate how Muniz himself has aged, right, on top of that. And then even when I went back to watch the Bruno, I know it sounds like I'm picking a dog, not necessarily here. I'm setting up for it. But follow me here. So he goes, then he fights Bruno Silva, and he surprises us there. Now, I picked Bruno Silva in what I felt like was a trap fight. I wasn't denying that Allen deserved to be the favorite. It was more just a flyer on what felt like a trap fight. And in my defense, it almost looked like that because Bruno Silva is actually the first one to rock Brendan Allen, right? But Brendan Allen ends up catching him on a counter and changes the temperature of the fight and actually rocks him like multiple times before getting the finish, right? In this short firefight of a one round. But what I noticed is when he rocked him is that he immediately shot in. Which I know Bruno Silva is like, he's a black belt technically, but he's not like a high-level submission guy, right? He's more ground and pound, get on top, or brawl it out on the feet, Bruno Silva, right? Well, that being, and I get that. So it's dangerous with a guy like that on the feet, so maybe you want to take him down. But I just noticed that was kind of Brendan Allen's game. Like he will get into these ugly fights. And he welcomes it. Now, he's got improving wrestling, A. And B, more importantly, he's, at least from what we've seen so far, doesn't mean he's going to win. Who knows? Crazier things have happened as far as skill jumps. But from what we've seen, he also, B, has the better wrestling than Paul Craig, right? So there's that, right? But we'll see him kind of flow and have fun. And he's also got the better sweeps. So that'll save his ass a lot. But I almost feel like he's still a little, again, he is corrected much better. And as of right now, appears to be a much more fuller fighter. We'll get to the improvement that Craig showed in his last fight to watch out for here potentially. But he looks to be the more fuller and complete and well-rounded fighter than Craig is. But he still has a lot of that Paul Craig in him, like I mentioned before, with the Jay Giles fight, right? And you almost hear that with the way Henry Hoof talks to him, because Henry Hoof's like mellowed out, right? Like, But like he's much more older, calm dad with his glasses now. He's got more gray hairs, right? But I swear, if anybody brings back the old like Michael Johnson, Anthony Rumble Johnson, any of the Johnsons, Henry Hooft, right? The 2014, don't quit, come on, don't quit, stand strong, where he's almost slapping him in the chest like he's the military dad from Sound of Music. Wow, Dan, 1960s reference, real good for MMA podcast, Don't quit, stand strong. Where's the rumble I know? Where's the rumble I know? Don't quit. Sorry. I just love that Henry Hoof accent. It makes me feel like I'm in a, not too nice army of World War II. It makes me say, Dan, it's different language. Sorry. I'm just saying. Gives me those vibes. I'm sure Henry Hoof's a nice guy, by the way. I'm not saying he's. Anyways, point is, Brendan Allen brings that Henry Hoof out because something I noticed, and which is why even though I still think this is going over, and I put 2 units on the over, on why I think we're still in for a weird fight that is going to find a finish one way or the other. And why I kind of gave up hope and on the Brendan Allen by decision. It's not so much that, again, there's a lot of question marks on both sides / the fight itself when we get into championship rounds, because these are not where these guys have traditionally been or have ever been, I believe, unless it's been on their regionals. Yeah, Brendan Allen has, but he lost both those fights to Eric Anders and Hernandez, the ones I mentioned earlier. So there's that, right? Maybe his cardio does fall apart, right? We don't know that. Paul Craig, it's like you could say that, right? But at the same time, Paul Craig, again, much more durable and much better stamina than he gets credit for. That was a really tough fight early in his career against, traveling to Australia, so on and so forth, against Jimmy Crute. While Jimmy Crute was kind of firing before he kind of got brought down to earth a bit, and kind of has not been the same since Crute. And conversely, we've seen him pull, victories at the end of third rounds with Kennedy Nchukwu, and most notably, and most last secondly, Magomed Ankalaev, Dagestani Stipe, right? And those were fights where he was getting tooled up on as well. So Craig, there's no reason why we don't think Craig can't win in round 3 again, or even in like a round 4, so to speak, right? Again, once we get to those rounds, it's who's in the better shape is one intangible, but also just the weirdness that I can't put my finger on, that I feel like, again, back to these middleweights that just match up together weird, and why are they matched up together? We're throwing them in a main event, okay, And Allen feels like he's on his way up. He is the better wrestler. He is the better striker. So I'm going to pick Allen. But Paul Craig has also, improved his striking. We didn't really get to see it, obviously, in the Johnny Walker fight. We didn't get to see much in that fight. We got to see it much more, though, in that Andre Muniz fight, And you saw glimpses of it even in the Vulcan. Me. I love John Gooden, but he's like, me, Vulcan, me. It's like he just like strains himself. I'm like, what do you, John? You have such a beautiful voice, a beautiful English accent. What are we doing on the like, me? I know he actually spends time in that part of the world and picks up their language. So I'm obviously just busting John Gooden's chops. He's the man. But yeah, even in that fight, you saw him like actually winning the striking, and then back to Brendan Allen, where these guys are kind of similar. Like they almost will shoot themselves in the foot. Allen still won his fight, but again, similar thing. They're winning the striking. They almost don't even realize they're winning the striking, and then they're going for takedowns. Whereas, like conversely, against guys like Puna, maybe because it was the wrestling he was scared off of, but like guys like Puna. Not only does he not wrestle as much as you think he might want to, right? Because once he gets to the ground, you think maybe that's where he at least at that time especially, had his biggest on-paper advantage. No, he does like a disciplined, simple but effective striking clinic of just going body work, right? To my guy Puna there. So, he's not exactly the most consistent as well. And I think that a lot of it comes from emotion. I think he gets very emotional. And it's not just me saying it or noticing it and noticing how other people act. Like clearly he's a guy that has trouble focusing, because like like Henry Hooft, like you'll just like it'll be like kind of quiet and like not much you think is going on is happening in the fight, and you hear the commentary, you hear the crowd in the background, and then all of a sudden there's just kind of like a beat in the action. You just hear Henry Hooft just with all the frustration in the world, focus, focus, Brendan. Sorry about your ears. He's just like, you'll just hear him lose it, because I think Allen has just that kind of flakiness to him. So I can't trust him at a favorite price, much less uninflated favorite price. I'm gonna pick him to get a round 3 finish, kind of similar to that Jimmy Crute fight. I think that they're going to bring out the best as well as the worst in each other with the grappling and the weirdest. But I think someone's gonna find a finish, and even though the reason why I thought the over was low, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is, or the total point is low at 1.5, regardless if you like the over or under, I thought that was low, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is by playing the over. But I also think it's because, again, you've got Paul Craig, who's kind of all over the board, but Brendan Allen, a lot of his stuff is early. Most fighters' finishes are early. And then particularly round 2 is a hot round for Allen, right? So that is their logic, I believe, the bookmakers, for putting the 1.5 rounds. But again, knowing what they know about each other, the dangerous, the weirdness, the potential unknowns, or even knowns about their self and their own cardio, right? I have to imagine that the fact that they're not used, these things are in play and they're not used to it, that even just having the most smallest modicum of responsibility would tell you, let's feel it out this round, right? And stylistically, it would also tell you that by just having, whether it's 2 wrestlers, 2 BJJ guys, whatever the case is, and these guys are very similar in a lot of ways, right? A lot of times those guys end up having weird fights and striking it on the feet. Again, back to that middleweight example with Vettori, Hermanson, Strickland, right? So yeah, I think that because of that, instead of the hot rounds being rounds 1 and 2 like they typically are, I believe that the hot rounds, again, it doesn't mean I'm going to be right, folks, right? But this is, shout out to Liam Fights Picks for submission reads, right? Shout out to CJ Saftik for the parlays. I'm the round guy. Hot rounds, get your hot rounds here. Hot rounds here. You don't have to hit it at the highest percentage to profit of being that much of a player, but whether I hit or not, I'm usually not too crazy with the analysis, right? I'm not too crazy off, right? In my defense here, right? Poetan round 2s, these things like that. I'm not too. I won't lead you guys off too far off straight, for what it's worth. And I think that my logic is that because of that, rounds 3 and 4 become the hot rounds here, right? Round 3 is already a kind of a weird Paul Craig round as is, and I'm picking Brendan Allen to win in that round. And if it's as weird and as intense, or or whatever, the small cage, even if it's a weird slow-paced fight, again, at least I would have, at that point, I've cashed the over, and that's all I need is the over to happen for me to profit, walk away from profit. That's all I need. I just need this to go 1.5 rounds at minus 120 for 2 units, because what I did do was what I took just under a unit. What is it? 70, about 3/4, just over 3/4 of a unit, and I split it on rounds for both guys, okay? So what I did was I played Allen in round 3 for a Scottie Pippen, plus 800. That's the lowest number. That's my official pick. That's the most likely of all the rounds, both odds-wise and according to my analysis. So I went .33 Scottie Pippen for that, right? And I believe it's like plus 800. I believe that's .267 units you get back. So you minus the money that I'm doling out for these other round props, assuming we got there, the over already cashed for us, right? That collects us an extra 2 units at minimum if one of these hit. The next one up is Allen round 4 plus 1600, and I put a .17U. That's the number for the rest of these, .17U. I forget what that gives, but essentially you're getting at least the same back. But what I also did was I also sprinkled on Paul Craig in rounds 3 and 4, at .17U each. Round 3 for Paul Craig, I got it at plus 2800. And that's over, that's like about $600 back on that, I believe. And then, or like over 500, so over 5 units. And then .17U at plus 4,000. What is that, like 7 or 8 or something stupid? Let me see here. I have it right here, folks. Where's it at? Oh. I take it at this house. Either way, yeah, like those are really big. You know, you're getting over, 5 or 6 units extra on top of the 1.66 or whatever that the 2 units returns you for a minus 120 bet, right? So if none of those rounds hit and we get a finish at the end of round 2, then I'm essentially, profiting just under a unit because, again, we got the over, right? If it finishes in round 5, which is really weird and unlikely, or goes to decision, then obviously those rounds don't hit, and again, we're stuck walking away. We got to minus a little bit of that profit from the total, which leaves us with, again, just under a unit profit. Now, if either fighter finishes under, we get shit. We are out 2 and 3/4 units, right? Almost 3 units, right? So between Bellator and the plays we have going before that, we better hope we make our money there. Because that's how I ended up attacking the board. I don't suspect I'm going to like too much from this card. I'll let you guys know what I'm on and what I'm looking at. But right now I'm sitting just at the bottom, more at the bottom end of my 7 to 9 unit usual average per card play. That's where I'm sitting right now. So yeah, basically we're over 1.5 rounds, minus 122 units, and then sprinkling Allen round 3, 0.33 units plus 800. Round 4 plus 1600, 0.17U. And then Craig round 3 and 4, 0.17U each at plus 2800 and plus 4000. All right, let's speed through the rest of these, shall we? Co-main event. I didn't get a chance to post this yet, but it's up on the Action Network. I already have my betting analysis up and pubbed for this one. We got Michael Morales, the Spider-Man, and he has a Spider-Man in his Instagram, so I feel less bad making that association because clearly this guy is himself. I'm not caught up with that Spider-Man iteration. It looks cool, so apologies, folks. But we got Michael Morales minus 305. Jake Matthews. Jake. Cat Stevens Matthews plus 245. Yeah, you guys know I'm a big Jake Matthews fan. Seeing the number is tempting. But when I went and looked at it, this is another one where, this feels like dog or pass, even before the line inflation when Morales was still closer to his opener at like minus 250. At least for me, that's still parlay territory, right? With my bankroll and most how most people play. So even that was like, ooh, we're really going to trust this guy? We got to see more from this guy. And again, he's not Mackenzie Dern out here. Like, he is looking better each fight. His offense is definitely looking better. His offense is better than Dern's. But he does keep that chin really, really high. And you get a comparable wrestler with knockout power. Like, that's who there's going to be a nightmare for this kid. Excuse me. That's when we're really going to find out / see Morales forced to dig. Could be this fight too, right? Jake Matthews has better boxing. But here's the problem is that Jake Matthews, not just his consistency, which has been a theme throughout his career, right? Especially as he was aging and growing out of lightweight. You really see the inconsistencies there. Still trying to find his footing, but at the same time, he's still only 29 years old. And for his inconsistencies, Jake Matthews has been improving, especially his striking. He has some underrated kicks. He can switch stances, but it's really his boxing and his body work from orthodox that has really been the most improved. The problem is that Morales' defense seems to really be exploited, and both stylistically, his theme, him as a fighter, this is kind of how you should approach him, and also it's because his defense, his porous defense is exacerbated when you do this, and that thing that I'm alluding to is pressure. You got to have someone who can pressure, wrestle good enough to defend takedowns or get up off their feet, and have knockout power. Those are the things you need to beat Michael Morales. Even a more refined version, which he still is not. I expect him to improve at this age, as you should. But that defense is troubling. But what's troubling is, if you want to take Matthews, is that he will put his back to the cage. And that is Michael Morales' kill zone. Even his couple back foot knockouts where he was just asking for it with his chin in the air. But because he has power and proprioception and the confidence to get behind that power and proprioception and just stay in the pocket at his own risk of demise, high risk, high reward, right? But even in those instances where he gets that kind of that back foot knockout-ish on his last one or two fights, I forget what it was, or maybe not knockout, but knocked down. I think he knocked down Max Griffin on the back foot. Even that was near the cage, right? And that's where Jake Matthews tends to hang out, and I don't like that, Jake Matthews is good when he pressures guys at the cage. That's where he got Filaho. Andre Filaho, right? My round 2 Matthews, that was a big score for your boy here. But if you remember, he initially sparked it off the back foot off the counter. Now, again, even though I picked Matthews by round 2 submission technically, I said don't sleep on his striking, and I thought the submission would be probably teed off more from a club and sub. And you saw why. He's able to clip Filaho, who doesn't have a great chin, like I've been saying, right? And has been proven since that fight. But that was off the back foot. I don't know not saying he can't. He certainly can, especially with the porous defense of Morales. But, again, Morales is going to have a huge reach on him. 79 inches, right, is his reach. Taller, longer fighter, proprioception, have that power edge. And you look at it, too, Jake Matthews likes kind of doing that. And I'm not trying to, as people love to pick a side, like there's some side that's right or always right or something in these arguments, or any argument. But, I'm not trying to do check hook versus the right hand. But, yes, part of the risk of throwing the check hook is you have a much more sweeter, pinpoint, kind of high risk, high reward kind of a deal, right? But the risk is you miss your interception, you can allow a right hand to go over the top. You miss time it, you can allow a right hand to go over the top. And Jake Matthews, we've seen that. In fact, he's been dropped by right hands. He had a really good chin historically, but then you see him get dropped a lot more recently. And I went back to watch the tape, as I do, and he actually has been dropped by right hands and multiple times in 2 of his last 3 fights. And, again, coincidentally enough, they were when he had his back to the cage. The one where he didn't have his back to the cage is when, the problem area, right? I mentioned it for a fighter earlier with Jason Jackson, I believe. A lot of these problems, regardless of his positioning, whether he's in the positive or the negative cage positioning, it just tends to be a bad area for him, right? And even though, Matthews would eventually finish Filaho after already hurting him in another instance, as I pointed out, against the fence, you tend to forget, and I know I forgot until I went back to rewatch it for this podcast, was that at the end of the first round, Jake Matthews actually almost outdoes all his work, and almost gets the round and the fight stolen from him, so to speak. I know the judges hate using those words, steal, when they're doing their official communications. But yeah, at the very end of the round, again, Andre, he's the one actually has his back to the fence, oddly enough. And Jake actually has the positive. Jake Matthews actually has the positive position. And he gets clipped by Filaho. You know, I know that's Filaho's thing is punching, but at the same time, it was like, ooh, you know, that does not age as well, right? And yeah, so seeing that, you know, he's got a thing for the right hand, Morales, he just kind of can't miss it, whether he varies uppercuts or overhands. I couldn't get that out of my head. So even though a competitive decision is more than on the table, and even though I probably should be staying away from this fight, and was thinking of making it just a lean, but either way I played it anyways, so that I put my money where my mouth is. I get it, you know, only a fool would make a bet thinking they have no chance of losing. Like, there's definitely a chance of losing this one, but I went with a total again, and at least I like the overs, and you get better money for the overs. I don't like unders, and I went with the under. I went with the under 2.5 rounds, minus 135. Didn't go 2 units. I just went 1.35 units for a 1 unit return. But essentially, and I'm not getting cheeky with any round sprinkles like the last fight. That's the only play on this card. Put my money where my mouth is. Essentially, I just don't think they match up, you know, for the strikes, you know. I feel like we're going to be staying on the feet because Morales is the better wrestler. And, you know, if anybody could get a submission, maybe Morales could if he, you know, has a guillotine because, you know, if he does hurt Matthews the way I see he does, and Matthews, you know, even though he has been hurt and can be hurt, he is more durable than I give credit for, which makes me worry a bit on the under. But I could also see him in shooting it and giving like a guy like Morales his first guillotine win, you know? Wouldn't be his first submission win, but it would be his first guillotine win, on paper at least, right? Working with Entram Gym and some jiu-jitsu people. Kid's got good wrestling. But ultimately, it's that right hand availability. And on the Matthews side, even though I just kind of credited, even though I just admitted that I could oddly enough maybe even see a submission the other way more than Matthews getting it. Matthews' upset is more by KO. Now, the odds makers tend to agree with me because they like priced it like plus 600 KO compared to like plus 1,000 for sub, when I feel like it should. I figured it was going to be reversed because Matthews is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and the more known grappling person in the smaller octagon, right? But that being said, I agree with them. I was just hoping to get more of a contrarian thing than I definitely would have sprinkled if you had like plus 1,000 Matthews by KO. Because again, Morales is porous defense, and if it's not Matthews, it's going to be somebody, you know? And not just porous defense on the chin. Something I noticed in the it might have been the Vera Technikov fight, but this guy doesn't like getting hit to the body. A couple fighters now have hit him to the body, and he showed to visibly not like it, right? And Matthews, even though he doesn't do it enough, he has really been making it a point to incorporate body work, whether it's punches or even front kicks. So, again, Morales' defense is too much for me to trust him at this price, much less at this point of his career. I need to see more. The smart move is probably not to bet this fight and to wait and see. It's dog or pass probably from a betting perspective, but I don't feel strong enough for Matthews. So again, I'm going to take the under here, and at least I'll get coverage for a Matthews upset. I feel like if Matthews gets the upset, it's probably going to be, you know, 90% it's done inside the distance, 10% by decision or something like that, maybe 85-15 or something like that, maybe even 80-20, right, if I want to, you know, give benefit of the doubt there. But I don't know. I think these guys are both north of 75 percentile to finish the fight. The odds don't necessarily reflect that. So there's value in the under by that logic, even though I hate playing totals and I hate playing unders. Under 2.5 rounds, minus 135, 1.35 units for a unit return. Chase Hooper, minus 218. Jordan, love it or leave it. You got it at Levitt's, plus 180. Yeah, man, this one, even without my stated bias that I'm going to state right now, I don't know Jordan Levitt. For what it's worth, he beat like an old training partner of mine in the amateurs from the organization I used to fight at Tough Enough. Shout out to my guy Tyler Nass. I forget how young some of these guys are, like Jordan Levitt. I read something where he was like, oh, I read Jack Slack in high school. I'm like, how old are you? I'm like, oh, no, wait, that's right. You beat my guy Tyler Nass, who was like born in the year that I got my first black belt, you know. I was like, what year were you born? It was like 94. I'm like, I already competed at Taekwondo Nationals at that point. Wow. And I'm sitting there sparring with these kids in amateur fight team practices back in 2012. So it would make sense that, you know, these kids fresh out of high school, yeah, Levitt's right around that age. Of course, he trains at Syndicate. And even though Neil Melanson's not associated with that gym or really any gym right now, of course, my guy, Coach Neil, he is my kind of family member, I guess, even though I don't know Jordan or have I actually met him when I was cornering Oscar Willis, actually, it must have been a syndicate fight up next, and I don't know if Leavitt was caught without like a bucket or whatever, but he came up to me and said, "Hey, can I use your bucket or this or that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, man." And he's really really nice dude. Just shared equipment, just that backstage camaraderie that you tend to have in the corners. Seems like a nice guy, but I don't know him personally or anything like that. That being said, I am going to state the training bias because I do really feel that I felt that he was live against Paddy Pimblett, even though I didn't pick him in that spot. Because again, just because it's a Neil Melanson guy or Eric Nixick or Extreme Couture or any kind of other bias, doesn't mean I can't stay professional and pick against him. I often actually do. I do my best to do that, folks. But yeah, I did believe that Leavitt had could show better in striking, which he did in his next fight, for what that's worth, and that he had better to show from submissions if he didn't get caught. And what was, as much as I'm not a Paddy Pimblett fan, so to speak, I definitely will give credit where credit's due. And even if you're a Paddy Pimblett hater, you got to give credit to that move, that sweet front headlock to the back take with the arm grab. It was like one of those perfect things that you absolutely got to give credit for, but it's not one of the most highest percentage or replicable things, not just for Paddy Pimblett, but for anybody. Or else we would have seen that more, right? So if that thing doesn't happen, how does that fight play out? And I know that's so unfair to do, but I got to do it here, folks. I got to do it here because I did it at the time. I did it after the fight, despite not picking Leavitt, but was proven right in the subsequent fight for what that's worth. But yeah, can he do it here against a guy who is going to be able to scramble and it's going to make it ugly? We're in the small cage, which is like the Chase Hooper special, right? But again, Jordan Leavitt, man, I believe he's better than he shows. He's had his slip-ups here or there. But he's also a guy that can not just, he can win a decision. He can win a TKO. Not that Chase Hooper can't, obviously. We've seen him do it as well. But, you forget about that Matt Wyman slam, that Jordan Leavitt got as well. Like, I know that's not replicable either, but even though he's been burned by stuff that's not the most replicable, he can also hit those opportunistic things as well. That being said, I do trust his process a little more. I will admit, there is one fight that I did not get to watch before this, which was Hooper's last fight, and he did show improvements there. It's in 2023 as opposed to his fight before then in 2022. So I am definitely expecting a better Chase Hooper here. But again, throwing my bias outside, I don't even disagree so much that Chase is favored. I'm not sitting here and the wrong guy is favored. This is crazy. Like, no. What I am saying is, no matter who you think is favored, I will say that I don't think it should be this wide. This is even wider than the previous example that I used it for, right? This is north of a 2-1 spread, depending on where you look at for Mr. Chase Hooper there. He's up at like minus 235 at some spots, right? And I know it's not too much far above the opener, but again, whether it's opened that way or public money, not that I advocate disrespecting people. I'm friends with a lot of the public bettors. I'm friends with people who make these lines, folks. I'm friends with statisticians. But that doesn't mean I don't shit on stats when it's appropriate. That doesn't mean I don't call it out and put my money where my mouth is when I disagree with an opener or where a line is set. And that sure as shit, you guys know this for a fact, doesn't mean I'm going to be scared to fade the public, because I love fading the public. Love it. Keep fading old people, fuckers, while this old guy cashes. Sorry, I know I can't talk shit. I'm still in the red here, folks. I'm still in the red. I'm in striking distance though. In fact, if we, even though I'm not going to complain, we had a great night. I didn't lose any $1,000 swings, even though I didn't technically win any $1,000 swings, even though again I profited more than that. But I'm talking about single bet swings here, folks. We'll say we still do. I'm not content. I have not forgotten about. I'll own the bad bets, but I have not forgotten about the bad beats. And there is, this variance thing y'all speak of. There's still a lot of old Danny Boy's way here. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a thing here. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But basically, yeah, I'm gonna pick Leavitt here. I don't think you could justify the line being that wide. Again, I'm not. That's what I'm back to earth on. Yeah, I'm not afraid of the line or the public money, so to speak. But if I can get Leavitt, I'm seeing him at plus 180 right now. I'm a little greedy, and part of me wants to hold out for like a plus 185. I don't know if we're going to get it. I may pull the trigger on plus 180. At least that is a nickel of of extra than what he opened at, plus 175, which I still think is kind of a stupid line. Even if he loses, this should be closer to a pick 'em, folks. So for that reason alone, picking Leavitt and don't need to justify it. But again, I will come clean on the bias with Neil Melanson, but we'll mention that because Jordan Leavitt's a really good grappler, folks. He's got a really good grappling coach. He's really taking this one to heart. And, he said, what did he say? You'll pay for your insolence. I love that. And, maybe there's also some weird juju. I got my mom came to visit to help my dog Ben with his surgery. He's doing okay. The cancers were non-tumor. The tumors were non-cancerous, and he's actually healing really good despite having a giant fucking lump and some holes and broken teeth and stuff. He's doing great. But my aunt sent something with my mom to give to Ben, and it is it's the Monkey King! Monkey time. All right, Monkey King time, baby. All right, you got it. We're going with Jordan Leavitt. I didn't officially pull the trigger. I probably will by the end of this podcast because I'll probably end up getting scared for the line to go back the other way. But yeah, none in the books, but you can expect a Leavitt play. Probably just kicking for coverage on the money line there. All right, next fight, we got Peyton Talbot. Man, I got to be going through my contender series, grading the winners. Like, I swear, especially for these Apex cards and just the way the UFC is with their roster now, like, before I'd have my tabs of like, oh, I did an in-depth breakdown on this guy. Okay, well, my in-depth breakdown, as you guys know, I have like notes, stats, written stuff galore. So I pull those up for reference points. Hopefully you do the same. And I always say to do the same for these contender series fighters, but since they populate the majority of the cards, feels like everything's a grading the winners thing. Peyton Talbot, out of range, minus 800. Medic-Orolbai, plus 550. Obviously, I'm probably going to be picking Talbot here, but MMA, too volatile, not proven enough. I'll give more information on my quick picks. You can see more of my thoughts on Talbot by going to read Grading the Winners, which I still have yet to do in this fight. Obviously, I'm not in a rush to break this one down or throw my money at a minus 800 debutante against a guy who you could argue is due, but I do remember that definitely Peyton had kind of the it factor, right? So he's going to get that line, whether it's justified or not. So we'll see. Maybe we can get some sweet fade material from it. Who knows? Let's see here. We got Amanda Ribas, minus 238. Luana-Pinheiro, plus 195. I haven't looked at this one yet. I'm going to lean toward the favorite, but WMMA over a 2-1 favorite, I don't like that. So even if I do pick it, I doubt you'll see me having a Ribas play. We'll see. Maybe I end up on Pinheiro when you go and see me on Fight Day at Dan Tom MMA, where I post all my picks and plays. Of course, MMAJunkie.com on Fight Day for my quick picks and prognostications. You go tune in tomorrow. I'm recording this on a Thursday, so you tune in on Friday for Bellator 301. You'll see my quick picks there. Tune in on Saturday for UFC Vegas 82. You will see my quick picks there. All right, opening the main card, at least as of right meow, I believe. Maybe not. We'll see. Jonathan Pearce, minus 130. Joanderson-Brito, plus 110. Everyone's scared to touch this one, and I get it. I like Brito here. I'll be honest. This one I went off of memory because I'm very familiar with both guys. I've been following both guys and betting on their fights usually in one way or another. And essentially, I'd feel better if this was Rafael Alves, who has a mean guillotine. I feel like those two can get confused easily. But similar to Rafael Alves, Brito is another just Brazilian warhorse. Gets disrespected, by the odds maker, so to speak. Typical one of those dudes. Will fight for your money, so I don't feel bad. It's not the sexiest plus number, right? Jonathan Pearce is a guy who is another guy like Chase Hooper, a grapply chain grappler. Or a grindy chain grappler. He loves the small cage is his shit. That is his home court advantage. I am well aware of that, which is probably why he is slightly favored. But I still don't feel like Jonathan Pearce is all that trustworthy. And his wins, a lot of his wins were against bantamweights on short notice when he's a guy who's a giant featherweight coming down from lightweight. I know the Kai Kamaka one looks impressive, but that Kai's a bantamweight was fighting on short notice. Took that fight on very short notice, I believe. C-Rod, is kind of an underrated guy, right? As we've seen, but again, he's underrated bantamweight, and he's kind of small for a bantamweight at that, right? Again, fighting a giant featherweight who usually fights and will probably should finish his career at lightweight, in Jonathan Pearce, who looks like he cuts a ton of weight to make this limit. And, I don't know what that's going to say about his chin against a guy like Johnson-Estevam, who, has essentially pound-for-pound heavyweight power at that weight with the guys that he's been able to get out of there. I mean, Feely's got that island boy chin, too, you know what I'm saying? He's not an easy guy to do that to, despite his frame, and the fact that he's been knocked out before. It's been big things that knock that guy out, right? So, yeah. Nothing crazy to say, just essentially kicking for coverage on Joe Anderson-Brito. You're getting, maybe you could make an argument. I wouldn't. I would still say that the favorite is the spread is right, but I'm just getting a nice value on it. Not nice value. It's not a crazy number, but I'm getting the plus number on a guy who's more than capable of winning this fight. He's going to fight for that money. At least I won't, regret it too much. Just a 1-unit shot. Nothing fancy. Anheliger is another dog I'm going to be looking at, plus 164. He faces Jose Johnson, minus 198. I like Anheliger. I have to refresh myself on Johnson. He's always been a very forgettable fighter for me. I've covered him before. I've seen him fight a whole bunch, even on the regionals. It's just always very forgettable to me. So I got to look back at that fight, but I have no interest in playing Johnson if I pick him. That feels like a dog or pass. Apologies. I know it's bad enough to hear, even if we do a decent job, like you may accuse me of sometimes. I'm going to lean into the really ignorant Yank version, which, any Yank doing English impersonations like chalkboard to English people's ears, I apologize to you. But, I'm going to go with the pod yourself a gun. Is it Matt Lieb? His accent, his English. Oh, Roy, fucking Mick Parkin, Roy. That's just what I picture him. He looks like the cop from A Clockwork Orange. Wow, Dan, early 70s. Well, it's not the 60s. At least I'm referencing 70s film. He looks like that big kind of chubby cop from Clockwork Orange. Where, Roy? Oh, Mick fucking Parkin. Sorry, I can't even do the ignorant one. I hurt my own fucking head doing that. I apologize to my friends across the pond. I'm going to pick Mick Parkin. I was not impressed with Kyle Machado. I didn't go back to read or rewatch his fight or read my review, but I remember the fight and the review quite well. And I don't think that his arguably aimless kind of style and monotonous kind of style is going to put any kind of fear or throw McParkin off too badly. So I'll pick McParkin here, but I haven't looked into this fight, nor this is a fight that I really want to look into or get involved. So will I have to look into it? Is it on the main card? Please tell me it's not. Oh, wow. They actually kept the heavyweight on the... Wow, they kept the Apex card with the heavyweights off the main card for once. I'm telling you, I got to give credit where it's due. They really beat the hell out of us for like a year and a half there, but I think they're finally throwing lighter-weight fighters on main cards again. Who knew? Entertainment. Value. Good divisions. It happens. All right. Next fight going down. Euros. Oh, this one could be opening the main card. My bad. We'll see. Not Anderson-Brito. Jonathan Pearce. Euros Medic, who is no longer facing Johnny Parsons, which was arguably one of the more fun fights that this card had to offer. Euros Medic, he's actually now the underdog. Wow. Well, the other guys, isn't he like an LFA champ or something? Yeah, he opened as the dog too. Against Medic-Orolbai. Please tell me. I didn't listen to the MMA analysis yet, so we either just had a great minds think alike, or you guys are, accusing me of being a hack. I don't know. That feels like a very MMA analysis nickname, so I'm not trying to jock on their shtick there. But Orolbai. This guy, my God, man. Like I think I saw like people being really, I know I come off as like the Dagestani hater or whatever, but man, I saw some really unfortunate comments being made on Islam Makhachev that I'd be lying if I didn't say I saw it coming. It's just one of those things where like, I can pretend to be, moralistic, but I've got a fucking awful sense of humor, folks. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend I'm a good person. I've got an awful sense of humor. I see the jokes. And sometimes it's just like, sometimes the comment section both never disappoints, yet disappoints at the same time. And sure enough, I went to the comment section of the Orolbai guy, and I was like, this guy looks like, maybe it's because I just got done watching and sharing that Dave Caveman Rickles doing the caveman walkout, the prehistoric walkout. But I feel like this guy, Miktibek, Orolbai, I feel like he should have been doing that walkout, you know what I'm saying? Or it wouldn't have been as good because it would have been like so real. Like, it almost takes the joke away from the Clay Guida, I think the Geico, I think a caveman, the Dave Rickles, because like this guy looks like, I mean, you know, I made the joke about the Demolition Man, like cryogenically freezing fighters. Like the UFC looks like they're literally unfreezing prehistoric guys to fill these cards at this point. Like the schedule has gotten so crazy. We're taking, you know, we're unfreezing Orolbai and throwing him in there against the Medic, you know, to see what kind of revival can happen. Obviously, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. This guy, I'm going to have to look into this matchup, both because he's favored, and that interests me, as well as the fact that I have to, because it's on the main card, so I have to write about it. I'll be doing that tonight, and I have to turn everything in tomorrow morning. So, I'm going to be burning the midnight oils. I still got to get my best bet, prop squad, and some of these main card fights looked at, but I can give you guys the leans, you know, like, for example, like, you know, doubt I'll be playing anything on the Talbott-Aguirre fight, for example. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even like Talbot or Aguirre are like one-round finishers or one-round losers, and Aguirre's taking the fight on short notice so we can do the Rebecca thing and just set it and forget it at round one. Like, you can't even do that with that fight, you know what I'm saying? So I'll give you guys my leans on some of these fights that I didn't, you know, look into too deeply for somewhat of a reason. I try to prioritize. But we got Aileen Perez minus 185, Lucia Pudilova. Unless you're playing, you know, Lucia Puddle of Love. That's an old school PYM podcast nickname, Lucia Pudilova, or as I say, Lucy Puddle of Love. Don't think about the nickname too much. It gets more disturbing the more you do. But the point is, Jesus Christ, unless you're playing Puddle of Love or playing in the Puddle of... Jesus Christ. Unless you're playing the dog. Let's keep it clean, Dan. Let's keep it clean. Stay on target. I would probably stay away from that one, obviously. Maybe I'll even take Puddle of Love in Tout Master. I don't know. I can't even remember who Anheliger-Saragih is. Plus 390. Lucas Alexander minus 520. I do know that Lucas Alexander lost to Joanderson-Brito, who's on this card, and who was on underdog on this card. And then Lucas Alexander minus 520 against this Anheliger-Saragih character. I don't even know if that's worth looking into, whatever that is. Here's a fight that I'll be interested in the line movement. Nicholas Motta minus 135. Talbott-Ogden plus 114. Obviously, there's bias. Nicholas Motta is, part of the Extreme Couture, Mads Burdell. It's funny watching them go at each other all the time. That kind of a crew. So maybe there's a little bit of bias there. But Nicholas Motta is a guy who's been, I was really happy when he got his win by knockout and cashed on that. For his one UFC win, because it was, this guy's been slugging it out on the, it wasn't his debut, because that's why he lost to Miller, I believe, to get in short notice. But, man, it's one of those Brazilians who just, took the hard road, fighting for nothing, gaining experience on the regionals. So it makes his record and perception, maybe not as good as it should be, but at the same time, he is an action fighter who is not beyond, getting knocked out of there, right, as well. You can't deny that. Hence, he's going to be in kind of closely aligned fights where he currently competes, right? So, basically, I'm going to pick Motta, and I'm not telling you to play him or whatever, but for me and for the sake of value, if I get the minus 150 favorite, which I believe is justified, doesn't mean he's going to win, but I believe he's justified as a minus 150 favorite over Ogden. If he goes down to not just plus money, but if he gets down to like near even money, like minus 110, I'll probably take a shot on Nicholas Motta out of principle there and just kick for coverage. So there's that. Charles Johnson is another underdog I might be interested in looking at. He is currently plus 124, and I could play him right now for the value argument because he's already almost did a complete flip, a whole 180 or whatever, reverse, however you want to call it, because he opened at minus 130. He's almost exactly mirrored opposite of that at plus money. So that alone, that being said, I do remember that I did like what I saw from Rafael Estevam, so I'm going to rewatch a bit of him, reread what I wrote about him, and go from there. I got a good feel on Charles Johnson. He's a guy I've had tabs on and have had plays and researched for that reason because of. So it's more the Estevam side. I want to refresh myself to see if this line movement is justified, or we just perhaps got another justified dog shot, right? So I still have room on my docket to add one or maybe two more plays to this card. And then I think Christian Leroy Dunklin versus Dennis Leland is no longer on the card. So, all right, how did we do on time? 2:09. Jesus, what a long fucking show. We had a long ways to go. Sorry, folks. I'm going to try to clean up the chat real quick, and then we'll recap picks and plays for both Bellator and UFC. Ghost, hey, both Craig and Allen fought Muniz, who is a southpaw. They both used rear kicks effectively, but probably negligible in our analysis, both orthodox. Yep, that's right. And they both also have sneaky switch kicks, so I wonder if they'll both try to get the jump on the other guy, since they both could be expecting the right side kick. And they do the open side, since it's a same stance, orthodox versus orthodox. James Kendrick, I asked Drake and Alex Behunin on the Sound and Pound podcast, but do you like Paul Craig's style of getting beat up and then winning by sub, or Paul Craig just getting beat up? Obviously, I love his style of getting beat up and winning by sub, but I will say, Paul Craig's got underrated ground and pound, man. If he gets on top on this fight, like, watch out. He could either win outright or just change the course of the fight to where he wins later on in the fight. James Kendrick, can we get a Jake Matthews accent while you say Jimmy Crute for our friend Jimmy fucking Crute? Jake Matthews, Jimmy fucking Crute. Rhea Susan Truesdale, when Jake Matthews fought Andre Filaho, appreciate using the proper name. Was that a case of Filaho? Thank you for using it again. Was that a case of Filaho taking the fight on short notice, or a testament to Jake's skill? I don't believe Filaho took that fight on short notice, even though he was taking a lot of fights on short notice on that time, and to his own testament preferred to. But I don't have a solid answer off the top of my head. Jimmy Kudo, you talked about Matthews' front kick to the body. Would it be better for him to jab to the body in this situation to stop the takedown and doesn't give up a leg? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point there. A body jab wouldn't be bad, especially, going off his jabs and hooks. Jimmy Kudo adds, which is better in your opinion for orthodox versus orthodox matchup, jab to the body or front kick to the body? Oh, easy, jab to the body. I've been doing a lot of body jabs too, especially with Poatan. Just watching a lot of footage of him. I was doing the circling of the stepping in body jab, man. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a great shot to do from orthodox to orthodox. And when I'm in southpaw, I'll often, if I'm doing a shifting step off at an angle, I'll kind of do that Junior Dos Santos, where you step off at an angle and change your level, shift into the body jab. JDS Stipe won, I believe. I'm no Paddy Pimblett fan, but I agree with you, Dan. The Asoto to the body triangle with Levitt's arm trap was cool. And I say that as a Jordan Levitt fan. Okay, I feel less crazy there. Thank you, Ghost. Synchroing, what's your opinion on the cross-check in an open stance matchup? The move where you bring the lead hand to touch your rear elbow to block a body kick. Your lead hand to touch your rear elbow. Oh, yeah. Those are good. I was actually practicing those and reminding myself of a detail to keep a kind of a hangover hand. If you're talking about the cross-checking with the arms this way, Muay Thai blocks, so the kick doesn't slide up and over and go to your head, kind of as a safety cap. If that's what you're talking about. I know terminology can get tricky. Last two, James Kendrick, word on the street. You got some yambaggery on this card. Plus 600 on fight to end DQ. In any open stance matchup. Lou Betya reference. Shout out to Lou Betya and the Yambags. I was actually thinking about this card. I didn't see anything that jumped off the page, but I'll tell you what I was thinking before I get to Rain Laminas, which was, I was talking to my guy Brad. I was thinking about almost, there's 4 cards left, and I was reminded that I was still thinking like it was back in the day where they were giving you plus 8,000 or plus 8,400 for draws. Draws are much more common these days, so I believe they've lowered the price in the last few years to where I believe the average roughly plus 5,000. And if you do that, divide it up by an average of 12 to 13 fights per card. No matter what the amount, whether it's a Scottie Pippen or a .17 you bet the draw on everything, you would essentially have to hit one draw within 3 fight cards to justify it / secure yourself a profit. And it felt like we've had draws in like 5 of the last 6 cards because I've been cashing on a lot of pushes on my round robins. But I'm remembering that those weren't all draws. A lot of those were actually no contests. However, 2 of the last 3 cards had at least 1 draw on it. Or the last 2 cards in a row at least had 1 draw on it. And the last 3 cards in a row should have had at least 1 draw on it if you are arguably the Usman Khamzat Chimaev fight was scored correctly. And there's another fight on that same very Abu Dhabi card, 294, I believe, that could have been argued as a draw. The point is we are seeing those much more. And I know we talked about the refs taking their turn being on the out wheel, right? Like being on the wheel, the boo, shame, taking their turns doing the shame walk. But what's one thing we've noticed, right? It's like, yeah, it's scary. You know, the fighter that we've seen guys like Mike Bell not give the 10-8, even though he is most known to give the 10-8, right? But whether it's Mike Bell or Brian Miner, who are very well-respected judges within people who actually track these things and not just shit on judges to shit on judges. That being said, those guys, some of their most noticeable mess-ups were the fact that they didn't give a 10-8. And now I will say that is a good sign for everybody, judges, as well as the intelligence of the overall MMA community in general, progressing, moving in the right direction, right? We are calling people out for not giving the 10-8s, whereas the general attitude, whether it was with circles or what closed circles of the commissions to what their decisions kind of generate for our perceptions and expectancy biases, is that we tend to not expect as many 10-8s, right? So seeing everybody move in that direction is good. Dana White, of course, threw a wrench in these things with the Blachowicz-Adesanya fight in 2021, and it's been the overcorrection game that I often talk about. I talked about it just in this podcast with judging and reffing, how it comes up, right? And we've seen that with the overall criteria movement in spite of their 10-8 meeting. That being said, even though they're still not on the same board, and those criticisms are more than fair to throw at the judges with a lot of these things, even though people tend to go too hard, yada yada. It doesn't mean it's coming from an unfair place. I will say they have been better about giving the 10-8. And again, it's more encouraged. So I think that you need the right combination of the right kind of cards and the right kind of matchups along with this trend. Otherwise, betting draws is kind of like betting the yam bags, even though I'm more of a big fan of Lou and the yam bags for what it's worth on those bets, by the way. But they're arguably, we see more draws now than we see points taken, right? You know what I'm saying? So these things are very dangerous. They're very degenerate to bet. I'm not looking down on it. I am a degenerate myself when it comes to plenty of things. Not looking down on it, not nose-upping it, not hating on anybody. I'm just saying realistically, I'm doing the math. And when you play these things for these kind of odds, and I'm sure the yam bags kind of average out similar, you're going to want to have to hit like 1 every 3 cards to make sure you're staying in a profit if you're going to, blind bet these things across. And it's like, well, no, you could be selective. It's like, can you? Because here's the dangerous part about being selective. And I know I'm already going along here, but this is important. Here's the dangerous part of being selective is you're going to be like, okay, well then that means I'm not going to waste money on fights that are, probably going to end inside the distance, are favored, and have proven finishers in them. It's like wrong. Those are the fights that are most likely to get a draw because a draw entails that somebody got their ass kicked, right? So you're actually going to need those fight finishers, right? Also, cards in Brazil or in Texas, especially Texas, but as well as Brazil, both officiating in the scores, hometown cooking, or bad judging, or both. Those are very volatile markets. They are volatile markets that get that stereotype. However, those are also where you're going to see draws more often than not, right? We got a draw in Brazil the last card, right? For example, and I believe we can see draws in Texas despite their volatile judging because this is something else I say, something to keep in mind, bettors, for next week, and I'm reminding myself out loud because I wish I reminded myself this with the betting the under in the main with the, Al Jailman fight or betting, and getting PTSD for the second time in a row and not, getting cheated out of a Zaleski dos Santos sub is because what I always say for the reffing part, it's Kumite rules. Whether you got Kerry Hatley or you got Eduardo Hurdy or Osiris Myra down in Brazil, like these dudes are Kumite rule dudes. They let fucking fights go, man. These commissions are Kumite. They don't stop it unless the guy goes limp. Like you're not getting the stoppage. It's something to keep in mind when you're betting these fights, right? It makes it more volatile. But back to the draw. These markets are, oddly enough, they're actually better for draws. Again, we just got a draw in Brazil. We're in Texas next week. Something to keep in mind, folks, is because you you need the violence bringers in the fight, but you also need the sole arbiter, the violence facilitators, the ref. You need someone to bring the violence, and you need someone to allow the violence to play out, right? You need those Kerry Hatley Kumite style, like, you're still breathing, we're still fighting. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how you get the 10-8. That's how you get the 10-8 score, because you have to allow the 10-8 round to complete. And also, the person who got the 10-8 round is now probably tired because they probably should have gotten a stoppage, thought they were going to get a stoppage, and let's see if they can survive the last 2 rounds, and now you got your draw. So I've actually been tempted to start hitting some draw lines, actually, folks, but I didn't do it for this card. I may. I'll let you know. It's something I'm going to be keeping my eye out, though, for the last of the year. Because, again, you know, if you're playing down like I am, if I'm still down and I need some miracles, maybe I just spam that for the last 3 cards of the year, including the Texas card, and hope we get at least one draw to justify it, right? So that's something there. Rain Lamina, Dan, don't feel left out. We're all annoyed by the Dagestani's fan base. The fighters are good, but we want to see them lose just because the fan base is annoying. I feel that there. Synchroing. Sorry, not the lead to the rear hand. I meant to the lead to the rear elbow leg check. Oh, yeah, Peter Yan did against Jose Aldo. Yeah, I love that one. That is a cool one. I dig that one a lot, yes. Apparently, Matt Favola said he was working that check against Benoit Saint Denis, but didn't get a chance to show it. All right, folks, it's been way too long. Sorry. I'll get you guys good timestamps. Let's get the fuck out of here. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, 5-star ratings and reviews, please. Thank you. At Dan Tom MMA, at the PYN podcast on all social platforms. All right, Bellator 301. Only going to recap the main card here for Bellator. I'm taking Amosov over Jackson. Taking Mix over Pettis, but it's Dogger Pass because I played Pettis. Taking McKee over Outlaw. Taking Stotts over Sabatello. Taking Shabley over Fieri. I played Pettis despite picking against him because of the odds, and I played Rafian Stotts. Plus 122, 1 unit for Stotts, plus 184, 1 unit for Pettis. For UFC, I am taking Brendan All-In Allen over Paul Craig. I think cannot run a Grace Scotsman. Taking Michael Spider-Man Morales over Jake Matthews. Taking Jordan Levitt or Leavitt, the Monkey King Levitt. Woo! Over Chase Hooper. Sorry for your ears. Taking Peyton Talbot over Nick Aguirre. Taking Amanda Hebach probably over Pinheiro. I don't know. Check me to see on quick picks and prognostications. Also check to see who I take between Euros. We're just a couple of wild and crazy guys. Wow, another 1970s skit reference, Dan. Over what was that guy? What was his name? Where's his name? Medic-Orolbai from 300 BC. I still got to look into that fight. Check me at Dan Tom MMA. My quick picks and prognostications on Junkie. Taking a shot on Brito over Levitt. We'll see if I take Anheliger over Johnson. I'm still undecided on that one. Taking Mick fucking Parkin-Roy over Kyle Machado. I'll probably take Lucy Puddle of Love, Lucia Pudlova, Lucy Puddle of Love over Aline Perez, but I don't want probably anything to do with that fight. I'll probably just take Puddle of Love and Toutmaster. Probably take Lucas Alexander, but over Jekes-Saragih, but I don't want anything to do with that fight. Taking Motta over Ogden. I'll play it if I can get Motta toward even money if this line keeps trending. Give it to me, baby. We'll see if I end up taking Charles Johnson over Rafael-Estevam. Check me on quick picks and prognostications on fight day. And okay, recapping plays again. Stotts and Pettis for Bellator, 1 unit each at plus money. But for the UFC, Brito plus 110, 1 unit. Levitt, I'm going to be firing on that probably right after I get off the show at least 180, unless I can get a better number. I'll take that instead, obviously. 1 unit. Those are my only official straight plays as of now. We'll see if, again, I get that number on Motta. We'll see if I like Johnson or Anheliger. For totals are my big main plays. Of course, Allen and Craig is the biggest play, over 1.5 minus 120 for 2 units. Morales Matthews under 2.5 minus 135, 1.35 units, risking for a 1 unit return. And so far, the only props and round flyers I have in play are my sprinkles with Allen round 3 plus 800.33U, Allen round 4 plus 1600.17U, as well as Craig round 3 plus 2800 and Craig round 4 plus 4,000, 0.17 you each. Of course, round 3 and 4 are the hot rounds. Get your hot rounds here for that fight. Hopefully we take home some nice bonuses, but we just need to cash that over to be home 3 on that one. And that is all I got so far. You know, I'll probably be looking at Brito round 1 for a round robin. Maybe an Allen round prop for a round robin if I need something. Maybe Morales a round 2 or something if I need something. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what the heck the round robin will be, to be honest. I know that Brito round 1 is going to be something I'm going to look for in it faux show. But I don't know what else I will look to spread the coverage with. Okay, thank you guys very much. Awesome show, Dan. Thank you. Have a good weekend. I appreciate the love. Great show and good. Thank you very much. Great, Jennifer, for doing the time. Says I appreciate you. Appreciate Jack Slack, timestamp guy, for showing me how to do it. Sorry for the long show. Hopefully you guys dug it anyways. We covered a lot. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the fights. Good luck on your picks and plays. And always protect your neck.